Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Mayor Davey. Councilmember Kaplan.
Here.
Councilmember Laredo. Here. Vice Mayor London.
Here.
Councilmember McCormick.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
Councilmember Segurola is not with us this evening. Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item, Mr. Mayor, is a special presentation by the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office and the Public Defender's Office.
Mr. Bass, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dunn. Sir, Deputy Chief of Juveniles, welcome. We really appreciate you being here.
We can't hear Mike, I don't think. Mike, you might be muted.
So I was informed that some information was being sought as to our procedures in the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office as it relates to the direct filing of juveniles to the adult court system, specifically the criteria that our office uses, how we evaluate these cases, how we make those decisions. So I'm here to speak a little bit on that, answer whatever questions you may have as well. I wanted to begin by kind of setting forth our general philosophy. The philosophy of the state attorney, Ms. Rundle, is relative to our size in Miami-Dade County, being the largest county in Florida. We really do direct file an extremely small number of juveniles. And that is in keeping with our general philosophy that direct files be reserved for really the worst of the worst crimes. Legally, Florida law would allow us to send many, many more juveniles to adult court than we actually send. But our office has come up with and developed over the years a set of criteria that we look at every felony that comes in. And a juvenile must meet our criteria in order to be even considered for direct file. And I have those here, and I'll just list them for you real quick. And again, this only applies to felony cases, whether a juvenile is going to be potentially sent to adult court. So the first criteria is if the juvenile is charged with an extremely serious crime, including certain crimes of violence, and crimes in which the juvenile was in the act of committing the crime with a weapon or firearm of some sort. Gun violence in particular is taken extremely seriously by the state attorney. Pretty much any crime of violence committed with a gun is going to get reviewed for direct file. And I want to emphasize also, when our office reviews a case for direct file, when it comes into the state attorney's office, reviewing it for direct file does not mean it's going to be direct file. The vast majority of cases do not end up getting direct filed. However, when the juvenile meets these criteria, it's our red flag, so to speak, that there could be something going on with this child. And he either is in need of additional services that can be provided by the juvenile delinquency unit, or if the crime is so egregious, he may just need to go straight to adult court. The second criteria that we use is if the juvenile is aging out of the juvenile justice system. That means a child who is 17 years old and approaching 18. The reason for this criteria is we have limited jurisdiction in juvenile. If the child is not committed to a facility, our jurisdiction over that child ends at age 19. So the purpose of the juvenile justice system, unlike the adult system, is not to punish. The adult criminal justice system explicitly says in the statutes, the primary purpose is punishment. Juvenile is different. The primary purpose is rehabilitation. So if we have a child who is almost 18, approaching 19, not in a position where he or she could receive sufficient services in juvenile court because they're just not going to be around long enough, that is one of the criteria that we're going to have to look at that case and say, okay, is it feasible to keep this child in juvenile because we have so little time with him? We also have to consider, once we lose jurisdiction over a case, if the child turns 19, we lose that case forever. And if there is, for example, a victim in that case, a victim who's owed restitution of some sort, for example, we don't want to just lose jurisdiction over that case. So we have to look at those cases very carefully when we're about to lose jurisdiction. A third criteria is if the juvenile is currently on probation or has previously been on felony probation. This tells us if a child is currently on probation, that means they've had a felony crime, say a grand theft of a vehicle, stole a car, was put on probation, and went out and stole another car. Okay, so clearly something's not going on correctly with that child. The fact that he's currently under the supervision of the Department of Juvenile Justice, but has still committed a new felony, that's a child we now need to take a look at. Same thing if the child was previously on probation and now is picking up a new crime. Even if he's not on probation anymore, it's obvious that something did not go right during the first time that child was on probation. So we want to take a closer look at it. And I, again, emphasize, it doesn't mean we're going to direct file the kid. In all likelihood, a child who is on probation for a grand theft of a vehicle and picks up another grand theft of a vehicle, although we may review it for direct file, that sort of case is not the type that we are actually looking to direct file in central adult court. That's the type of kid that we're trying to help. We want to get him services. And the final criteria on our list is if the juvenile is charged with a third nonviolent third-degree felony and has at least two other open third-degree felonies. So going back to the simple example of a grand theft vehicle, very common charge for a juvenile. If a child is arrested for a grand theft motor vehicle, he gets arrested, we keep the case in juvenile court. He gets arrested a second time for the same crime, we still keep the case in juvenile court. He gets arrested for a third time for another grand theft vehicle while those other two cases are still open pending. Now we're going to review that case for direct file because this child is telling us something is going on with him or her and they need more help, more services, and there's something going on. Now, once a child is identified as being reviewed for a direct file, it goes through a fairly extensive process where an evaluation is done, psychological evaluations are done, and it culminates in a staffing. And at that staffing, he's represented by his attorney, the public defender, or whoever else may be representing him. And the usual result of these staffings is most of the cases will plead. These cases that we're reviewing for direct file will usually close to some sort of a plea agreement. A very small number of them, of course, are going to get direct filed into adult court. These are going to be your most serious cases. These are your homicides, your attempted homicides, armed robberies with firearms that get discharged. Those are the sort of cases we take very seriously, sexual batteries. If you look at our list of cases that get actually sent to adult court, you're going to find really they are the worst of the worst at what comes into the juvenile justice system. But the vast majority, and I'm talking about out of the hundreds of cases that we do review, the vast majority do stay in juvenile court, even after the direct file review process. The direct file review process is not intended to just fast track kids to adult court. It's intended to try to get kids who clearly are having some sort of issue in their lives or in their homes or in their school or somewhere to get them whatever help or services they need so that they don't do it again. That's the bottom line. We want kids to stop what they're doing now because we know from experience and history, it starts as a kid, it works its way up and gets worse as an adult. And that's what we want to stop it in juvenile court if we can. We can't save every kid, we know that, but we really try. We do our best to try. And we don't always get it right. We don't claim we do. It's very much a, it's not a science. 2 + 2 = irredeemable. It's very much based upon our training, our experience of myself, of my division chief, Mr. Bass, in juvenile court. He's been doing this for a very long time. And many factors go into these considerations. The victim's position, of course, we always have to listen to the victim's position on these things. But at the end of the day, we make the best decisions we can with the information that we have available to us. And I think the state attorney would be proud of the fact that she sends so few of the kids in our community to adult court, because we don't regard that as a victory. We regard that as a failure. When a kid has to be sent to adult court, that's a failure. We don't like that. So I think that's all I have. If there are any questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the presentation. I guess we're dealing with a situation where we've got a lot of juveniles who are acting in such a way they don't necessarily rise to adult crimes. I mean, although we've had a few that have certainly risen to felonious assault or potentially, and again, I'm not a criminal lawyer, so I don't know what brings that. What are the ramifications to a child who gets put into the juvenile system? Suppose they're prosecuted as a juvenile. What are we're really trying to educate our residents and their kids as to what the possible ramifications are to them going forward if they've been entered into the system and now they've got to deal with juvie court and everything that goes along with that.
Sure. Well, unlike adult court, we don't send children to prison for years and years, but it is conceivable any child charged with a crime in juvenile, a felony, could be committed to the custody of the Department of Juvenile Justice. I guess that would be the most serious consequence that you can get as a juvenile, is to be committed to the Department of Juvenile Justice. And there are different levels of commitment, from low risk up to maximum risk. And maximum risk would be the highest level. And again, you're going to probably find the kids who were kept in juvenile but committed to the maximum risk juvenile facilities are charged with the most likely the highest level felonies, who are very, very close to being sent to adult court, but we just decided not to. But the challenge is that the jurisdiction of, if a child is committed to DJJ, the jurisdiction is still very limited. It goes up to age 21. It's a little better than if they're not committed. If they're not committed, as I said, it ends at age 19. But if they're committed to the custody of the department, we can keep them there technically until age 21. That would be the most serious consequence. Most cases don't result in a commitment to DJJ, however. Most cases are going to be put on some form of supervision, probation, etc., and they're going to be subject to jurisdiction up until the age of 19. And the conditions of probation could be counseling, it could be anger management, domestic violence classes. It depends on the nature of the crime, anti-theft courses, things like that. Restitution for the victim, if there was medical bills or financial restitution, etc.
Do they have a record of the juvenile system?
We can't hear. You have to unmute.
What kind of record does someone take the rest of their life if they're a kid, they get arrested, sent into your system, whether it be until they're 18, 21? Is that a record that goes with them, or does that record disappear when they get older?
No, the record doesn't disappear. We certainly always have access to that record. If the child gets arrested as an adult, I can see all of his arrests that he had as a juvenile. And I can see if he had a lengthy history as a juvenile where he was getting arrested a lot and then he turns into adult and starts picking up cases, that's not invisible to us. We can still see that. And we can still consider that. For example, there's crimes that you can still be charged with, possession of a firearm by a juvenile delinquent, things like that.
But I was thinking as far as his education, as far as jobs going forward, that's going to be tough to overcome.
Well, I can't speak to that. It's possible. Juvenile court is not as public as adult court. I can say that. There are confidentiality rules that apply to juvenile that don't apply to adult court. However, if your employer finds out about your juvenile history and decides to discriminate against you or not give you a job as an adult because of it, I can't speak to whether that violates any employment laws. That's not my area of expertise. I don't necessarily know.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilmember Laredo and then Councilmember Kaplan.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I am perfectly aware that I know Ms. Fernandez run for many years. It's kind of case that you have very, very serious compared to what we are perhaps, as you know, we're having this special meeting of the council because we have a situation that it seems to be escalating. It would be, as a law enforcement officer, in a way, an officer of the court. I mean, the role of policing and law enforcement is prevention. After the crime is committed and we go into the process, it's already damaged our societal fabric. So I find myself in the conflict between all these, rehabilitation concepts, and I took some notes, the seriousness of the cases, 3-time repeat. But we are, I hope, going to try to move in the direction of zero tolerance. I've been advocating it for 2 years in this community, because we're on a slippery slope of people getting away with a lot of things. And I find myself, while sociologically and politically sensitive to youth and rehabilitation as a concept, it is a weak link in our policy, because if the police enforces the law strictly, then you all don't prosecute because you got a lot of other cases that are more serious. We're like going around in circles. I don't want to call state attorneys the weak link in the system, but in this case, because one could reach that conclusion, we prosecute, we arrest, we charge, and then it gets dropped off. They just come around and around. We don't have the patience to wait for 3 violations. We're a small community, as you know, and we have high standards. How do we get better in terms of getting prosecution from your office so that we can prevent this cycle of violence going forward?
Commissioner, it's hard to speak about these things in a vacuum because every case is so different. And I can give you cases where juveniles were arrested for extremely serious crimes, and everyone was, perhaps a lot of people might have been prepared to just give up on that child, but they turned into a success story. And so, because it's so very hard to predict and to know these things. What I can tell you is this: at the end of the day, the state attorney is always going to do what she thinks is best, and respecting the other political branch of the government, of course, but it is ultimately her role and her authority to decide which cases go to adult court. Now, if you're having an issue where you believe kids are not being prosecuted in juvenile court, or cases are being dropped, but the evidence is still there, again, I can't speak in a vacuum. If there are specific cases that your chief will bring to me, I can look into any individual case or any individual child. If there's a particular problem child in the community who's getting arrested a lot, I can talk to your chief about that child and see what's going on. But as a general matter, we're not having just dropping cases just to drop them just because they're juveniles or just because they're difficult or just because the kid is, a problem child. That's just the opposite. The more bigger of a problem the child is, the more we want to help him or her.
Councilmember Kaplan?
The answer that you just gave really responded to the question that I wanted to ask. I'm good.
Thank you.
I tried to say that I respect the limitations that you have and the level of crimes that you have and the state attorney. So it's with that seriousness, concern about your workload. You do understand, however, and probably the best benefit for me is for you to take this message back to your office and that there's a conflict between social servicing, rehabilitation, social engineering, and demands by people who elected us and your office for law and order. And I don't know where the balance is, but we find ourselves in Key Biscayne at a crossroad that has never happened before. And if we don't stop it with very serious arrests, it's going to get out of hand. And if the prosecution arm is not helping us or sensitive, then we're wasting our time. Do you understand that? In the healthiest, constructive way I can, I hope you carry that back to the office so that we can work better together so that we can accomplish what the citizens want, which is tranquility, law-abiding, and safety. That's
okay.
The same thing, Commissioner.
Apologies. Councilmember McCormick had a question, I think, and then we're going to have the public.
I'd like to say that I I thank Councilmember Laredo for his frankness and directness in addressing the situation, and really agree with a lot of what he said. I think the only...
Yeah, I can't hear.
Oh, he can't hear me because I'm on Zoom. Can he turn up his actual computer speaker?
To the meeting?
Mike, you want to just review your question?
Yeah.
Sorry, what are we doing?
Okay,
Really? I use so many words, Mike. Okay. How are you going to do that?
Small words.
All right, I'm going to try to just add on to what Councilmember Laredo said. That
She's adding on to what Councilmember Laredo has said.
For me, the point and purpose of having this presentation tonight was twofold. You want to translate that? I feel like I'm at the UN.
Can you give him a set of headphones?
Interesting. Basically what she's saying is she wants to say her purpose for
Sorry. These are actually brand new.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Much better, because I don't think that the mayor can do justice to my wonderful. So
continue.
What I said, and for everyone at home, I apologize for saying it like the third time, but I'd like for you to hear. I thanks Councilmember Laredo for his directness in what he said, and I share much of his views on this subject. But the one thing I thought that I could add that would be maybe a little bit of a different perspective was, for me, the point and purpose of having you come out and having presentations like this was really twofold. One was for the benefit of our community, for kids and their parents to know that we have really serious consequences when people break the law. And whether that's being tried as an adult, if it's really egregious, or even just the juvenile justice system, that this stuff is serious. And we as a council have directed the police and the manager to be very serious about this, and to have this sort of zero tolerance policy that Councilmember Laredo spoke of. So I think it is, on one sense, important to use this meeting as a tool to educate our residents on what the consequences are. And I would say that the other goal that I had was similar to what Councilmember Laredo said, to notify your office that we are seeing a real problem here, that we have noticed. And I've been on council now, this is my 5th year, and I know I've been saying it since I was elected. It's probably one of the things I said to try to get elected the first time, that we have a problem with children on our island not feeling like they're accountable to rules or laws, and not having, and of course, I'm speaking in very broad generalities. We have many wonderful children on this island, but we have issues with the lack of respect for authority. If an adult says, hey, knock that off, instead of like, I'm sorry, and running away, we get really kind of, I'm old, so I'm going to say very fresh back talk. And it's a problem. And so as a community, our residents want to feel safe going to CVS. They want to feel safe walking their dog at night when a pack of kids come by. And so you're probably going to be seeing more people coming your way from us. And I think it's important certainly for you to execute your office the way that you plan on doing it, but also to have a little perspective of the situation that's going on here. And so those were the two goals that I had in tonight, and hopefully we've communicated it in a way that has expressed what our situation is. And also thank you for taking the time and for coming and for talking to us and for listening. So thank you.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Thank you very much for coming. Next we have Carlos. And unfortunately, if they have, hold on. I was just explaining the people in the chambers cannot hear what Allison just said so eloquently, because unless they're on their phones with a headphone. Some people can, but most cannot right now. Next, we have Carlos Martinez, who is the first Hispanic elected public defender in the U.S. He is Miami-Dade County's public defender, elected in 2008 and reelected in 12, 16, and 20 without opposition. Mr. Martinez manages an office with $33 million budget, comprised of approximately 400 employees, handling approximately 70,000 cases per year. Just as importantly, Mr. Martinez currently serves on the National Association of Public Defense Executive Committee and is a member of the Council on Criminal Justice. He was the chairperson of the Indigent Advisory Group of the American Bar Association Standing Committee on Legal Aid and Indigent Defendants and served on SCLAID. He was a member of the Institute for Innovation in Prosecution, executive session on rethinking the role of the prosecutor in the community. He serves on the Florida Bar's Commission on the Legal Needs of Children, 2 Supreme Court of Florida steering committees, the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice Zero Tolerance Task Force, and as the government lawyer liaison to the Florida Bar's Board of Governors. So thank you, Mr. Martinez, for coming tonight.
Thank you for the invitation. And I may just jump around and have a conversation because I think it's really important for you all to know, number one, what the consequences are. And the consequences are extremely serious. And it's not just the sentence that a young person could get, but it's also being able to get scholarships. It also impacts their ability to get employment. It also impacts ability to get benefits in the future. So there are a lot of serious consequences of an arrest, even a misdemeanor arrest. So, I want to jump in to Council Member Laredo, because I think you brought up the point of prosecution. So one of the great things in Miami-Dade County is that our state attorney has been around for a long time. And she was the one that piloted in the entire United States something called civil citation. Why did she create civil citation? Civil citation is an alternative to an arrest. An arrest is going to stay with that child. When the arrest happened, the kid is fingerprinted. Those fingerprints not only go to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they go to the FBI. So even if the record in Florida is wiped out, which there are multiple ways to wipe out, if that kid ever applies to the military, if that kid ever applies to a federal job in law enforcement or in other areas of federal employment, that kid may actually not get clearance. So there are a lot of issues, even from low-level misdemeanor arrests. Now, I started speaking about Ms. Rundle. Ms. Rundle set up the civil citation program, which is an alternative to actually booking the kid, fingerprinting the kid, and getting the kid into the juvenile system, which, I'm sorry, the best way to call it is a baby criminal system, right? We call it juvenile. We use a lot of language that kind of minimizes the seriousness, but it's a very serious thing. So she created civil citation to give the kids at least one shot, one free shot on a low-level case. You get one free shot. If it happens again, then there are other opportunities to either be prosecuted in juvenile court or find other options. The other thing that works really well in Miami-Dade County and why crime has gone way down for juveniles, I did not realize that you're having a serious problem. Because when you look across the county, juvenile crime is down. But one of the other things that we have in Miami-Dade County that is very good is when a kid, let's say it's not the civil citation, because civil citation, the police department can actually bring the parents in and say, your kid did this, and in order for your kid not to be prosecuted in court through through the juvenile system, your kid has to do, for example, 10 hours of community service, or you have to pay X dollar amount in order for this case to be over and done with. with Miami-Dade County, there's something called the Juvenile Assessment Center. What happens at the Juvenile Assessment Center? Let's say you have one of the kids here that is running around with one of the golf carts, and the kid is blocking traffic or worse, engaging in other behavior that is criminal behavior. If that kid is arrested and taken to the Juvenile Assessment Center, they will process the arrest, but they will bring the parents in. So, in terms of deterrence, particularly, I know your community is a somewhat affluent community. So, and I know people in affluent situations, their time is really important. So parents would not like to have to go down to a juvenile assessment center or to be part of an assessment that they would do of the kid and the family. So that's what happens if you have the juvenile court process in court. In terms of who gets prosecuted, Mr. Dunn was speaking about the most serious end of the cases, homicides, on cases where a kid held somebody up with a firearm or carjacking. That's the direct file system where a kid is then considered to be transferred to adult court and prosecuted as an adult. But I think the situation that has been told to me of the things that you're facing here, they're more of the low-level cases, and sometimes that could rise to other cases. So let me jump to the aspect of prosecution. The prosecution really depends on the witnesses who show up in court. I cannot tell you, I'm sure they could, from the state attorney's office, they could tell you how many cases they've had to dismiss because the witness doesn't show up. So an important aspect of who gets prosecuted and what happens with the case, it depends on the witnesses. So if you have that situation here where you have kids getting in trouble, kids committing offenses, and the kids get prosecuted, just make sure the witnesses show up, because otherwise the cases get dismissed because there are time frames for the cases and you require evidence for the cases. In terms of consequences, the arrest records are public record if it's a felon. So even if you're in juvenile court, if a kid gets arrested, for example, for grand theft is anything over $750. So if a kid goes and steals something that's beyond $750, that arrest is going to be public. So if anybody wants to look up that arrest in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they're going to find it. It's a public record. The juvenile case, the lower level misdemeanor case, like, for example, criminal mischief. Let's say the damage done was $100, right? That's a criminal mischief. That's a misdemeanor. That under Florida law is considered confidential. So you would not be able to see that juvenile record of the misdemeanor arrest. But for the felonies, it's a public record. So that's one of the consequences. I had an attorney, now forgive me because of COVID, my time is so way off that it could have been 15 years ago, but it feels like 6 years ago that it happened. But we had an attorney that was starting in our office. The attorney had gotten clearance from the Florida bar, had been admitted into the Florida bar after a lengthy investigation. You know what problem he had? He could not get an apartment in Miami Beach. Why? All those leasing companies do a background check. So his arrest record as a juvenile was still on his record. Why? A lot of these big companies, national companies, they obtain criminal records and they go ahead and sell those records. So even if you end up getting the case dismissed, even if you end up getting the case sealed to the public, it is still available from a lot of private companies. So there are a lot of consequences. So when there are issues where, and it's a push and pull. because you have the consequences have been so severe for so long that in Miami-Dade County, with police departments and throughout the state, we've really had to go back and forth trying to figure out what's going to be accountability and how much can we look at rehabilitation. So it's a push and pull because the consequences are so severe and so long. It also impacts the ability to get into college. Another story. This one is not a public defender client. This one is a girl. Both parents are doctors, and both parents, obviously, she went to private school. They did a lot of things to make sure her future was paved so that she could sail, because she was a very smart girl. She's a woman now, but she was a very smart girl. However, she did something really stupid. They went with other girls to purchase dresses for prom at Bloomingdale's. But what did they do at Bloomingdale's? Even though they had credit cards, and this particular girl had cash on her, that her parents gave her cash as a gift for her prom, for her to pay for her dress. What do you think she did? She stole the dress. She stole the dress. So I never found out, by the way, because, she was processed through a juvenile assessment center. She was given a diversion program, which meant she did not get the juvenile delinquency treatment. And she did all the things she had to do to make sure she would get that case off her record, except when she applied to college. Florida has a lot of really good state colleges. And she applied to one of them. And when she answered the question on the FAFSA, which is the Florida Financial Aid type of application, one of the questions is, have you ever been arrested for a felony? Arrested, not convicted, arrested. That girl, instead, it's an online application, and the word felony is hyperlinked. If you click on the word felony, a pop-up comes up and tells you it is not a felony if it was a juvenile case. She didn't click on that. So when they asked her, have you ever been arrested? She was truthful. She answers yes. So what happened? This girl had, I know GPAs now are not what they used to be when I went to school. Now kids have like 5.0 and stuff like that. Really high GPA, really high SAT score, really high ranking in her class. She was either number 1 or number 2. All these things were great. And all of a sudden, the parents received a letter from the university telling her she has been waitlisted. And they were shocked because normally it's almost automatic admission if you have those credentials. However, this is when I found out that the state of Florida system waitlist all the kids who answer that. They waitlist it. It doesn't matter how great their credentials are. They waitlist the kids so they can investigate that case and they can investigate that charge. The reason I'm telling you that long story is, even if you have done as parents all the things you need to do to make sure your kid does the right thing and your kid learns a lesson, there are lessons out there that could have long-term consequences, even of arresting a kid and take him to the juvenile center, particularly when it's a felony. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you that there are a lot of consequences that flow from getting involved in juvenile delinquency, in getting the arrest done, in getting the process done. So the issue is going to have to be is how are you going to be able to work that out in your community so that you are getting the message out that, look, we're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior. And then you do whatever, whatever it is that you need to do. You may have to get creative. You may have to figure out some way legally. Your attorney's not here, but you may have to figure out a way. Is there something that you can do with a parent? Because in some of the cases, if there's no parental supervision, like for example, on the golf cart situation where you have 6, 7, or 8 kids in a golf cart intended for 4, the kid has no driver's license, or the kid is old enough to have a permit, but there's no adult in the golf cart, that's still a violation of your code right now. So you may want to be thinking about, are you going to have some consequences for the owner of a golf cart? And once you do some of those things, you know, you may get a different result of parents taking more responsibility for what it is that their kids are doing. But it affects military, it affects ability to get scholarships. There are a lot of impacts. Some of them are longer term than others. And there's one side impact that a lot of people don't realize. If you disrupt the kid's education because the kid gets arrested, and let's say the kid got arrested on a felony, kid goes to the detention center, it is possible the kid all of a sudden has a new peer group that is not the peer group that they had, and you thought it was bad because of things that we're doing here. There are a lot worse peer groups around this town. And so that's a challenge, and that's something that you all have to take into consideration when you're looking at what are your arrest policies, what are your policies for disposition on these cases, and are there other things that you can do to, you know, try to force the hand of parents who may be contributing to some of this. You know, I did a lot of things as a kid that if my parents knew. My mom's still alive, so I'm not revealing anything while she's alive. But there were a lot of things that I did that, I mean, they were very strict, Catholic. But I still did stupid things. And thank God I did not get arrested, because if I had gotten arrested, I would not be your public defender today. It just would not have happened. So when you're looking at what policies, what discretion you want the police to have, that's one of the things. Thank you. That's your former mayor who just reminded me to make sure that I mentioned immigration. There are immigration consequences. There are so many immigration consequences that we do regular trainings in our office. And the short PowerPoint, we've been able to get it to 41 slides. So you can imagine, I mean, it is tremendous what can happen with immigration, including people who have a visa, whether it's travel visa, whether it's a work visa, whether they're lawful permanent residents, and they want to make sure that their kids become a citizen or that the family becomes a citizen. There are certain provisions of federal law, of immigration law, that would be precluded if the kid is adjudicated delinquent. So there's a lot of information that a lot of folks don't have. And a lot of times, by the time we get to advise a client, and particularly a child and their parent, it's almost too late, because the ball has gotten rolling on the consequences of that arrest and whatever the court involvement is.
Wow.
So I don't know if you all had any questions.
Well, no, I appreciate, I think everybody really, that's what we need. We need people in this community to really understand that there are serious, significant consequences to these kids' actions. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that we have to weigh the impact, but at the same time, they've got to understand that there are real ramifications potentially if they get involved in these things. You know, a golf cart is worth, I mean, other than mine, is worth more than $750. So I think it's a serious crime. People think it's a lark, but it can be charged as a crime.
And I'm sorry, because there's something that I did forget. I looked at the list of crimes. The list of crimes keeps getting longer. But there are a lot of crimes that kids, it may not be what's happening on Crandon Boulevard. There may be other things that are happening online.
Right.
There's electronic thefts. Electronic threats, and all sorts of things that really people have to get educated, particularly parents. Florida law has gotten really bad because there are really serious things going on with kids threatening violence or to have a gun or to bully some kid online. But there are a lot of those things that if you want at a future time, I'm willing to come and help out and give detailed information on some of those crimes, because a lot of people don't even realize that some of those things are crimes in effect. And I know I'm going to volunteer my friend Todd Bass in the state attorney's office. They would also be able to identify a whole list of crimes that are common crimes that juveniles get arrested for, just as a way of educating, your residents here.
I appreciate it. Councilmember Laredo, I think you had something to say.
I'm seldom left speechless, but your presentation is absolutely incredible, Your Honor. I appreciate that, and I would make a motion with the clerk, or this has to be clipped out, Madam Clerk, or Mr. Manager, and put on the very top of our website. Any parent who doesn't get it after this presentation, by the way, thank you for speaking in plain English instead of the legalistic, is that I am just so happy that you came, because you people have to understand that this is not playing around, and we need to get over a lot of areas, including some cultural gaps. But we are, we are moving into zero tolerance, because we tried the other thing, Your Honor. When it doesn't work,
Please call me Carlos.
Well, I respect you because you're an elected official and a great public servant.
Thank you.
And so I'm honored to call you Honor.
All right.
I think it speaks for itself. I think we should make it on our website so they can click just for his presentation, not the follow-up. It really is.
We don't need a motion. I think we just direct the manager to take care of that. Thank you. But I agree. Did you want to say something, Councilmember Lennon? Okay. Anybody else? Oh, Councilmember McCormick?
I really like.
Wait, I don't.
She likes to complicate things.
My prerogative.
It's your prerogative. It was her birthday last week.
Can I go? Oh.
Okay, I think I can hear you, hopefully.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
I want to thank you for coming and for the directness of your presentation. This is the second time, for people who don't know, that you've come and done one of these talks for us. I was there the first time with one of my kids, and I will be making all of them rewatch tonight's meeting. But what I really wanted to add was, this has been my night of echoing Councilmember Laredo. I love his idea of trying to put something together. And if I could just add and ask the rest of council for our direction to the manager, we could see if the communications department can maybe put together clips of it that we could even send out to, work a lot with the PTAs in our local school, and some of the parent WhatsApp chats, I think, is often a great way to reach parents in our community. So if we could maybe collectively ask Steve if he could try to work on something like that, I'd be happy to help disseminate that information in some of the chats and work with the PTAs.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, sir. Very much appreciated.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you to Mr. Bass and Mr. Dunn for your time. We really appreciate it. We'll probably be calling upon you as well. So thank you, Myra, for working with them.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is public comments.
Right. Okay. So 3-minute time rule, 3-minute time limit. Pete, if I'm going to ask what we're going to do here, we're still in the hybrid stage. I've got a bunch of folks signed up here. I'm assuming some of them are outside, but you folks that are here, I'll be calling your names. At the end, we will allow people who are calling in or are watching either on Zoom or Channel 77. You all will have the opportunity. You're just going to have to raise your hand according to the instructions that Pete has given you. I will also say when you are called, please state your name for the record, your address, and whether you are a hired consultant or village employee, and or if engaged in lobbying activities and or representing an organization at the time you're speaking, for the record.
Okay. So Mayor, just a question for you. We're out of courtesy and both to our time and to the subject of this meeting, I hope that everybody is going to speak about policing and how to make it better, et cetera, not any other item. Is that clear, or people?
Well, no, it's public comments at a meeting, so I'm not going to restrict anybody. Your point is taken, and this is the meeting. The specific nature of this meeting is to talk about policing, but we're not going to. This is a public hearing. This is a public meeting, and we cannot, and I will not allow. And I understand what your goal is because of time, but everybody gets the opportunity to speak. We're still living in America. All right. The first person up is Melissa White.
Do I need that to speak? Sorry, I just got.
What, you got a cowbell on? What is it?
Right. No? Good evening.
No, we can hear you.
Melissa White, 370 Heather Lane. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Welcome, Manager Williamson. We look forward to your leadership. I'm speaking as a mother, taxpayer, and 43-year resident. We had an unusual violent crime committed on Saturday, April 24th. Luckily, less than a week later, on Thursday, April 29th, the juvenile perpetrators of the terrible crime were arrested and charged by our police department. After a long year of isolation and social distancing imposed by a pandemic that caused anxiety at best and death at worst, teen delinquency reached a tipping point last month. In response, our interim manager worked with the then acting police chief to increase police presence, tweak policing, and add programs. And in the ensuing weeks, we have found balance again. That's good governance from the council, good management from the administration, and good policing. It doesn't mean that problems never arise, but when they do, it means our government makes changes, adjusts, and corrects. These issues with juvenile delinquency and crime are not for law enforcement alone to solve. We can stop a lot before it happens through parenting and community involvement. I was looking forward to tonight's workshop from the Public Defender's Office and the State Attorney's Office on juvenile crime and the impact of an arrest on your record. It was supposed to be held in the gymnasium for parents and children to attend. I'm so happy that the council did not listen to the chatter, to the negative opinion pieces that confused and spread conspiracy theories. And our public defender and our state attorney cleared up a lot of what was misstated in those opinion pieces. Specifically, that the police didn't lose evidence, that it wasn't policing that was lenient, but a system that is trying to help children stop bad behavior and stop before they get arrested. And so I think what you guys did tonight for the whole community was super important and hopefully will change behaviors. And luckily, you guys hired a candidate in the manager search process who is engaged in learning about our village for the longest period of time. Manager Williamson was learning about the Key since last fall. He understands there's no East and West. There's no homes versus condos. We're one community, and we do things together. We're very educated and thoughtful, and most of us, the majority of us, are grateful for our police department and for Chief Press. Thank you.
Next speaker, Alejandro Serrano.
Good evening. My name is Alejandro Serrano. I live in 784 Ridgewood Road, Key Biscayne. I'm not associated with any lobbying effort. I request that my comments be made a part of the record and of the meeting minutes. It has now been 14 days since the governor issued executive orders number 21-101, invalidating all remaining local emergency orders based on the COVID-19 emergency, and number 21-102, suspending all remaining local government mandates and restrictions based on the COVID-19 state of emergency. 11 days have passed since I last provided public comments in this chamber, formally notifying Mayor Mike Davey, the Village Council, the Village Manager, the Director of Parks and Recreation, and any other pertinent parties of their duty to immediately implement the following measures, which I will summarize since they're part of the previous meeting minutes. Number one, open all indoor and outdoor community spaces, including but not limited to the Key Biscayne Community Center and all of its amenities for complete access to residents with the elimination of all COVID-19 restrictions. Number two, immediately remove any remaining signage related to the COVID-19 restrictions from all indoor and outdoor community spaces. Number 3, immediately remove all COVID-19 restrictions currently in place for village employees and staff, including but not limited to Parks and Recreation staff, the village police department, and the village fire department. I'm going to add one which I noticed here today. You need to remove limited capacity in these chambers if that is due to COVID-19 restrictions. I hereby notify Mayor Mike Davey, the village council, and all pertinent parties previously listed that this is your second and final notice that for every day of inaction, you are continuing to violate the 2 executive orders which I previously listed, and you are therefore continuing to consciously and directly violate Article 4, Section 1A of the Florida Constitution. This makes all of you liable to legal action. In good faith, we would like to request that the mayor and any or all council members provide a response to this matter. We understand that there is an agenda item for tomorrow's general council meeting for Council Member Segurola to provide his recommendations on this matter. However, we have some people here today, inside and outside, and many listening at home that are eager to hear a suitable response directly from the mayor and from any and all village council members who are complicit in this matter. What better time than now, and what better place in these chambers for you to provide that response? I will close by stating that should you fail to provide a response, or should your response be indicative of you continuing with these unlawful violations? Today's topic is crime, right? You will leave us no choice but for us to pursue legal action against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Tanner. Ann, you're up.
Ann Tanner, 170 Ocean Lane Drive. Just for the record, Pinecrest has about maybe 1,000 more residents than we do, and they have 9 more police officers. Just stating facts. Ed, like you, I was raised in a community where the police were among us on a regular basis. That did not defer me from doing anything wrong, but did defer me from doing something wrong was if my parents found out and their consequences to me. I raised 3 kids on this island. They were born and raised here. There were no police, but the parents were heavily involved. The parents set up programs, ran them from scouts to sports, to youth activities, to school, to everything. Parents have to get more involved. They have to know what their children are doing and where they're at. And if they don't step up to the plate, I'm not sure what the answer is. But I don't think it's blaming the police or blaming the village and asking them to raise our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty Sim Conroy.
Good evening, council members and staff, and welcome to our new manager, Steve Williamson. We have great hopes for you, and I know you'll fulfill them. I live at 785 Crandon Boulevard, Unit 1403, here in Key Biscayne. Thank you so much for calling this meeting. Everyone here tonight or watching on Zoom are doing so because they love and care about our island. Safety is a key component of our quality of life and our sense of community. Tragically, in the last several years, we have observed that our children's pranks have escalated into serious misdemeanors and even felony crime. What changes to our current system will help us solve these problems? Of course, parents must take more responsibility. Our parents must be called out and made to pay for the destruction their child has caused. They must own the problem. Community policing is a must. The size and friendliness of our island leads itself to policemen on bikes, getting to know everyone, especially the kids. When juveniles break the law, there must be some consequences. The The word in the street has become that there is little or no law enforcement for juveniles on Key Biscayne. As a result, juveniles from all over Dade County have been coming to Key Biscayne and causing trouble. The last straw was the violent attack on Crandon Boulevard by juveniles from Miami Beach. I really enjoyed what we heard tonight. I called the Juvenile Assessment Center trying to do a little research on just the topic tonight. I was told that the most serious problems, that's when the juveniles are arrested. But the civil citation programs, I spoke with the assistant manager there, and she assured me that they offer rehabilitation opportunities, that is their main goal. And I loved when they mentioned that the parents are brought down to the station and the parents have to take responsibility. I also was assured with the civil citation program that nothing would go on these juveniles' record as an arrest. Now, what was mentioned sounded like where the young lady stole the dress and then she forgot to check a portion of whatever she had to fill out. But I think if she had checked that, according to the information I received from my call, nothing would go on their record as an arrest. But I think it's all something that we certainly need to learn more about and need to thoroughly understand. I also, in checking out our famous chats, some people even mentioned that there are other programs, that there are other rehab programs. I don't know if that's legal for us to do. If we find a child doing something really wrong, but we don't want to put them in these programs, can we find another rehab type program and let our kids go through that maybe suits our island better? I don't know. I'm throwing out questions.
Okay.
Trying to get new ideas.
Betty, I got to ask you to wrap up your 3.5.
Turn ahead. I was just getting transparency. But
sorry.
Anyway,
but
okay. Thanks so much. Again, thank you for having this.
Okay. Next, Jennifer Stearns Buttrick.
Jennifer Stearns Buttrick, 180 Cape Florida Drive. When I pulled up the notice for tonight's meeting, I noticed that you have a meeting tonight and tomorrow night. So I again want to commend you all for your volunteerism and your service to the community. It's not an easy task to serve on council. And also I'd like to welcome our new manager, Steve Williamson. We're looking forward to working with you. And we do have a wonderful community. It's been a difficult 14 months on many levels. We're dealing with many challenges, but one of them is that we seem to be living to a certain extent in a post-truth world, and social media doesn't help. Rumors spread very, very quickly about policing, about vandalism, about juvenile issues, and it's hard to really know where the truth is. But I grew up on the Key. I've lived here since I was 3 years old. I'm now 52. It's been my home for a very long time. And I was scared to death of the Key Rats. And the Key Rats did a lot of vandalism on the island. Some of them still live here and actually have become responsible citizens. There were no police to call when we had Key Rats vandalizing the island. We only had the county police. Somewhere along the line, many citizens decided to work together and incorporate. And in part of that incorporation process, we formed our own police and fire departments, which was probably one of the most brilliant things our original incorporators did. Along the way, someone else did something very smart. They hired Chief Press. And Chief Press has served our community honorably, and we are so lucky to have him here. When police departments around the country came under fire last summer, and even before last summer, last May, really, for a series of events, I was proud of our police department led by Chief Press because he was engaging in community policing. He was getting to know the kids through school programming. He supports neighboring communities that are less fortunate. And most importantly, he followed the law and best practices in policing. He wouldn't engage in racial profiling when some people asked him to. He wouldn't engage in high-speed chases when some people asked him to. He stood by the law, and reflects best practices in policing. And we should all be very proud. Serving this community is tough. We're privileged. It's safe, so our kids roam free. So the fact that we're so safe is sort of led to some of the problems that we're dealing with right now with juvenile issues roaming free. But we need to work together, but bored, unsupervised, and privileged kids can wreak havoc. They've done it in the past and they're doing it now. But I know that we're making changes and we'll address it and we'll come together. But the parents have to be involved, the communities have to be involved, our athletic programming has to be involved, but we're lucky to have Chief Press at the helm helping us get there. Thank you. I do have to say one other thing. Liz Urian asked me to make a comment tonight. She can't be here because of Art's health. She wants to thank the police and the fire department with all of her heart for helping save Art's life. And she believes he wouldn't be here without your help and assistance. I don't know where Chief Lang is, but thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And yeah, we're all thinking about Art. He's one hell of an individual. And so we're thinking about Liz and Art, and we wish them all the best and a speedy recovery. Patricia Romano.
I love my mask. Good evening. Welcome, Mr. Manager. I wish you luck, lots of luck. Thank you, council members, for being here, for having this meeting. So important for the community, for the parents, and for the children.
You gotta state your address.
What?
You didn't state your address.
My name? Oh, my address. I'm sorry. Patricia Romano, 361 Beechwood Drive.
You've never been here before. Go ahead.
My kids already grew up in Key. They're gone. And I'm sure they did things that I still haven't found out. And, but we parents have to be involved. And if the kids start with something, eventually they will go to another step, tempting you to see how much we're gonna take. And it's not the police charges to be after the kids. The parents should be in charge of the kids. The police have to be out there, and if they break the law, then it's when they have to go after the kids. So this is a whole community effort. It's not only the police getting after the kids, but the parents have to be after the kids. And I think we are missing a lot of that in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Alan Fine.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Alan Fine, 525 Allendale. Coincidentally, I was wearing my Heat Culture shirt tonight, and it reminded me that I spent some time with Chief Press working on some of these issues, and I've learned over the years that heat culture, which is really a group of qualities of character, of grit, social intelligence, curiosity, optimism, collaborative leadership, empathy, are the same qualities of character that make great basketball players, ballet dancers, scientists, political leaders, and good citizens. And Chief Press and the Heat, Tony Fiorentino, and a lot of us have worked together to try and sell heat culture in our community and in communities throughout South Florida, including communities a lot rougher than ours. So I began with those thoughts, and then I also thought about my work with Frank, trying to open up Mast Academy to kids on Key Biscayne, and we took a lot of incoming when we were doing that, because the argument was from the parents on the mainland: these kids are bad kids, they're entitled, they're not like us, their hearts aren't in the right place. And we were there to protect the honor of the kids and the parents of Key Biscayne. And I got to tell you, I've been extremely disappointed in what I've seen in the last few years. And it's too bad that we all need to be reminded that stealing a golf cart is grand theft. It's too bad we have to be reminded that setting tiki huts on fire is a serious crime. It's too bad that we need to be reminded, and that some of our parents apparently don't know, that if you commit crimes like that and you're arrested, it's going to screw you up in terms of getting into college or getting into the military or getting a good job in the future. And if our parents don't understand that, we need to make them understand it now. I can tell you that over the years, Chief Press and those before him have been under a lot of pressure from parents whose kids get in trouble. Don't send my kid down to juvie. Don't ruin his life. Don't do these things. Don't send them down with those people. Okay? Well, I got to tell you, I agree with Council Member Laredo. We're at a zero tolerance point now. They need to understand. And I think the public defender explained to us that there are a lot of ways along the route that even if the kid has to spend the night in juvie, there's ways to straighten it out so his record won't be destroyed forever. But, you know, we've got to take this opportunity to support our new mayor, our new manager, our police chief, and work together to educate our parents on this island so that this stops. Thank you.
Good evening.
Perfect. Go ahead. State your name for the record. I'm sorry,
Joseph Kellogg, 115 Sunrise. I'm not affiliated with any lobbying group, and I'm not organized. I wanted to come up and share an anecdote. I had an experience, a personal experience. I got home one evening to the condo where I live in the Garden District over here, and one of the residents back by the pool was very upset. Somebody from the building behind us was throwing vegetables from one of the top floors. And I guess this had happened in the past. I was able to see from which unit somebody was throwing these things. And I called the police and they came over and they went to the unit. They brought the person down and they brought the person over to me and we had a nice talking to. And it ended with that without, I mean, technically this was probably assault with a deadly weapon, right? Throwing a potato from the 9th floor, it could kill him, right? I mean, seriously, it could. But they didn't treat it an eye for an eye, right? They brought it out, brought the kids out. We spoke with them, you know, let me express my anger and this other adult that was there. And it made an impact on the kids. And I think that they moved on. And so when we're talking about, you know, this strict enforcement and that you have to prosecute and indict with everyone, I can't say that I'm an advocate for that. That I think it's important that we have different alternatives that are available that are somewhat short of straight into an indictment. And I feel fortunate that we've got a police force here that's got the experience and leadership that has helped to keep us safe. And that experience that I had personally and in other experiences that are out there. And it's a perpetual problem, right? I thank you, Jennifer, for reminding us that the youth of Key Biscayne hasn't always been the most law-abiding historically, and I think we forget that. This is going to be a perpetual problem, and I think it's important, and we're fortunate that we have leaders out here that can deal with these issues as they come up with severe consequences when necessary. And I do want to take a chance to thank all of you for being here and welcoming our new village manager, and for everybody coming out and showing how much we really appreciate, you know, our leaders. And we care about our community. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. George Mendia.
Good evening, Council. Welcome, Manager. It's good meeting you. Just thought I'd give you a little perspective. I was a teenager here in the Key, so the Key right back then was nothing.
Take your address.
Address.
George, your address, please.
111 Island Drive. Thanks. Key rides back then were a little rough, more so than people remember. The only problem is that there was only 50 kids in the Key in those days. Now there's 5,000, maybe not 50, 500, but then, the numbers are different. To give you a little perspective about our crime rates, we've had several. I was on council when the police chief was hired. And over the time that he's been with us, we had issue with people breaking into houses through the canals. And he instituted a marine patrol. We had issues on the causeways, and he instituted a motorcycle patrol. We've had issues on the beaches, so it's things happen, things change, and we've addressed them as they've come. Yes, what's been happening lately is different because it's just dumb in a way. I don't understand 12 and 13-year-old kids at 11 o'clock at night walking in front of CVS. It doesn't make sense to me. I was a kid here. I raised 3 kids here. My kids were never running around at that time, especially at those ages. So I think the message I got today was from the public defender. We have to be smart. Juvie and Jack are not the answer to our problems necessarily. I think we're smarter than that. And the things our kids are doing, while bothersome, and I'm not talking about the assault that happened, but in general, don't really rise to the level of those things. I think what he was telling us was really simple. Make it tough on the parents. You get a bunch of kids on a golf cart who shouldn't be on that golf cart. You take it. You take the golf cart, you hold it for a week, and they have to pay $500 to get it back and bring the parents. Make it difficult on the parents. They're going to be bothered enough that they're going to say, okay, you're not taking the golf cart again. I think there's simple solutions that we can do without going too far. So thank you all. Thank you, Chief Press. Good night.
Thank you. Laudi Ibarra.
Hi, Laudi Ibarra, 482 Cornwood Road. Okay, let me begin. First, I wanted to thank the police for all the hard work they have done. We spoke, everybody gave their opinions and everything, and they have done a tremendous job. Behind where I live right across the park, and I see them working tremendously. So thank you for all the hard work you guys have done. Another thing is that we also have a sign already saying that the police in the village are working, which is we have the flag, the black flag with the blue stripe, which means that the police are taking care of us and they're watching us all the time, let's just say. Now, a solution to me is that the police can do so much because they have to follow the law. So I think it's more of a family situations when these type of incidents happens with the kids. So maybe a solution would be a number of family therapies that they have to attend with the child that commits the crime, and depending on the degree of the crime. I think this is something people have to work as a family, and the family must attend and pay for the therapies in order to be part of this community. Maybe a family community therapist, a counselor, or a psychologist can help out, have it available, and work all together and see what we can do. I'm here with Kim, and we're part of the Kindness Committee. And during the month of May, we will be promoting kindness among children. We'll be choosing a kindness ambassador. So hopefully we see more acts of kindness and kids behaving well so we can promote this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or is Christine, are you in the back? Oh, it's Christine. I'll let Michelle go first, and then I'm sorry. I couldn't recognize you with the mask.
Good evening, Michelle Esteves, 425 Great Drive, 204. Welcome, Mr. Manager. Sorry, you have to show up, tonight. I am living on the island for 42 years, going to 45, I think, something like that, 1977. I raised my 2 sons on the island. It was The same island with nothing for teenagers. That is one of the complaints. It's the same thing. It was nothing. But it's not because it was nothing. They were bored to just destroying the island. I managed many condominiums on the islands over 30 years. I didn't have this problem like I have lately. Certainly we have different community, summer, winter, and summer was almost nobody here, but was more elderly community and during the whole year. Right now we have families. The children's, the kids, teenagers, no matter which age, they are not entertained in a way that we used to entertain our kids, in the way that we used to spend time with our kids. A parent go and do a community service hours, and we need to know the grade because we do a lot of that with kids, and the parent doesn't know even which grade his kid is. So, you know, it's the parent's responsibility. It's not our police department. It's not the police chief, chief press to start telling the police what to do and how they're going to be chasing the kids on the island. 7-Eleven, Starbucks, and CVS. If you go now, you see that they have security. Okay, so they hire security. We have to hire more security in our buildings. We have to pay our police officers more as a taxpayers in order to be chasing our kids on the island. Saturday nights, I have big damage in one of my properties. The kids underage in golf carts, but we couldn't find them where they ran away. But the damages, they are more than $700. So what I suggest to you is that parents, they are not going to come. Parents, they are not going to put much attention. Spend a little money on flyers. Send it, mail it to the homes. Mail it very attractive things in which they're going to pick it up. We have the message that people is registered in the with the email. Okay, send the email. What is the consequences with a link? So people can link and see the link to that address and see the consequences that they are facing. Put there also what you're going to put in place, because you have to do some changes here. First of all, zero tolerance. That is something that the message that you have to send. And with the consequences, probably they will understand. With the consequences, probably we're going to have things that we're going to change, okay? Because as a manager also, we receive the records and yes, they're coming up. And a lot of the association, they start rejecting those applicants because of the same consequences with the kids. So send the message out. This is very important. This is something that we have seen coming, but unfortunately we are overreacting. So thank you very much. And anything that you need from all of us that we are here tonight, because that's why we are here. Please reach out to us. We are here to help you, and as a community, we have to work together. Chief Press, thank you very much. Thank you, and the police, because every time that I call, they respond, no matter what time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Christina? And is Lucas outside?
Who?
Lucas? Camp, he's up next. How are you?
Hi, Mayor. Hi, council members. My name's Christina Cuervo. I live at 786 Curtis Wood Drive, and welcome, Mr. Manager, as well. And I've been a resident of Key Biscayne for 47 years, and I come with a simple message of support for our police department. Some of you do know that I've worked in many municipalities in Miami-Dade County, some of the largest municipalities here, and we are so fortunate to have this unique police department led by Chief Press and what he's done in terms of outreach to not only our residents, but to our children and giving them the support that he gives them, and what he's done with his staff as well. So I think we have a unique police trained public servants that do that outreach. And I think that you today, with what you've done in this workshop, you've laid the infrastructure in order to provide the support for the police department to continue to do that. But I also think the parents need to participate. So I think this is a good first step. And we have to continue this outreach and educating people, because the police can't do it by themselves. Us parents need to be engaged, and we need to be the ones guiding our children and making sure that this works. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thanks to the police.
Thank you. Okay, Nina Wallen is the last person signed up who's here. Nina Wallen? Oh, there she is. Okay.
Hi there, Nina Wallen, 270 Hampton Lane. I have grown up on this island, and I now have 3 boys that I'm raising on this island, and very proud of it. I have to say, I love the police, absolutely, support them 100%. And there are things that can be done, especially for the outreach, that I think parents definitely need to be accountable and be held a little bit more responsible in getting the kids involved in understanding what comes out of doing something wrong. So I would be a supporter of that. And one of the other things too, that there are families now that some of them have older kids, some of them have younger kids. It's a big mix in the families also as far as age-wise. One of the greatest things that I utilize every summer has been the rec center. And I just happened to go there today, and I'm a little bit surprised by finding out that they've opened up a summer camp. However, they're not opening it up to the kids to be able to come there, potentially not until fall is what I was told. And I think that's very concerning to me, because I want the kids to be able to go there during the summer when it's 90 degrees outside. It's really hot. They need to be able to use that jungle gym. They need to be able to use and go in there freely and use the space. So if we're talking about things that kids need to have things to do, one of the center of it all starts with the recreation center. I tried signing my kid up to go and do soccer, and I got turned away because they were completely filled, because the regular classes and things that are usually going on over at the rec center are no longer available. So they've oversaturated the field on those ends. And so I've been trying to do as best as I can to help the community and come up with new and different things for the kids to do. But as much as we can try and find other new different things, I really would love to know that the rec center is going to be open for these kids. They need to be able to utilize it, not just the kids that go there for summer camp, but just any kid. You know, that's the center of this. So other than that, thank you for everything. I appreciate it. And just wanted to say that.
Good evening, Terry Oliva, 300 Galen Drive. Good evening, Mayor and council members, and welcome to Mr. Williamson. I've been living here on the Key for over 40 years. I hope you know the majority of the Key Biscayners are happy and are proud of our community and feel safe, even if they don't show up to the meetings. We are a safe community. We all know how blessed we are to live in this small town. I am here in support of our police department, and specifically in support of Chief Press. When their help was needed by my family, they truly went above and beyond the call of duty. Truly, their professionalism and dedication and efficiency made things safe for me and my family. Chief Press was on top of things and personally up to date and accessible himself. From a community standpoint, as former PTA president at K8 Center, Chief Press personal dedication and accessibility is something you don't see in other communities. I mean, at the end of meetings with the parents, the chief had everyone write down his cell phone number and would always say to call him if anyone needed anything. I don't think we see that in many other communities. It takes a village to raise our kids, not just the police force. Let's all work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, so now we're going to, is there anybody else who hasn't spoken who wants to speak here? Lucas, oh, you're here. I thought I saw you online. Apologize.
What's up? Sorry. Hi, guys. So I'm Lucas Bocachampe from 201 Sunrise Drive, Unit 104. Well, I'm here to support our police and you guys for the job that you have done. I believe everyone touched all the points of the security that we were concerned. Regarding the community center I was hearing. it will be something good to have the full schedule as we had before. For me personally, I like to go to the gym at 6, it opens at 7. I take my kids to school at 8. So there is no way that I can get to go to the gym in those hours. So that's why I used to go earlier. If we can manage something to do an extended period of time. I know there are still some restrictions. They were very conservative at the beginning because I believe it was 50% of the capacity, which is 60, and they're allowing only 20. So if they can or take away the restrictions or take it to the 50% that was before, that would be very, very good. Something that I was thinking is we need to, I see there is people here in the meeting, there is people in the internet, but there is not the vast majority of the island. So how can we do something to all the information that we got today, these measures that we're taking with the kids and the police and everything that is going to be happening, how we will address all the situation that we faced before, how we're gonna let all the people know that this is coming, so people know what's the consequences they're gonna have. Because I know, we know it, we are here, some people is watching on the TV and the internet, but we need to go out and really let the people know that, you know, there is a problem and we're going after that. So parents will be more like conscious of talking to the kids and telling them, hey, listen, I don't know who of the kids are doing whatever they're doing, but they're friends, they know. If they're not from the island, they will tell. They will really be a little bit more afraid in a sense that if they do something wrong, they're gonna be chasing. So they can probably respect a little bit more of the island. So they say, if I'm gonna go to Key Biscayne, I'm gonna be careful because I'm gonna get caught if I'm been doing something that they were doing before. So, well, that's it. I believe everything that I was going to say, it was already said, but that's something that we need to find a way to put it out there. I don't know if the Islander News or all the communication channels from the city should be putting this out, social media and everything. So people, you know, this is something that needs to get viral in our community. Okay, good night. That's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Come on up. Come on up. Speak. No, of course.
Viviana Goris, 201 Crandon Boulevard. I just want to.
Sorry, could you say that again, please?
201 Crandon Boulevard.
And your name?
Viviana Goris. Goris. I think that the speech from Mr. Carlos Martinez was great and should be listened to all the teenagers on the island. What about to pass to a mass academy for all the teenagers? Because it was very clear the kids have to understand the problem that they can be if they don't follow the law. That's it. Maybe it's an idea.
I like it. Thank you.
Thank you to all.
Okay, so anybody else in the chambers wish to speak? No, you already spoke, Ann. You don't get another go around. Shoot, what's your question?
Chief Press, tonight there's been several people that have said, find the parents, make them responsible. Is that possible?
Let's have that discussion later.
Let's have that discussion. All right, next.
Tomorrow. Yeah, we'll have a discussion on the rec center. Okay, Pete, if you could just read the, you know the drill.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you watching us on Channel 77 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T, or streaming us live via our website, if you wish to speak or comment at this meeting, please dial the following phone number, 305-365-7569. Then please enter meeting ID 231-627-8415. For those of you currently in the meeting and you wish to speak, either raise your hand through the Zoom app, or if you're dialed in, please dial *9. Mr. Mayor, I have 4 people signed up. Our first speaker is Ms. Frances Reeves.
Ms. Reeves, if you would state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I am H. Frances Reeves. I live at 251 Crandon Boulevard. And I want to thank, and I'm not a lobbyist or anything other than myself. Okay, so you can smile, Michael, it's okay. We all know who I am. And Manager Williamson, let me also welcome you. And first, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. And I'm not sure if it was a scare tactic or informational, but I am confident that as this fabulous village, we can do more internally. And some of it, I do believe, has to do with policing. I have been affiliated with several police forces just because I'm on the board of the Baltimore Police Department. And we've spread out the board because of what it does for Baltimore has actually been part of several other departments. And I think some of it is just reaching the kids and their parents. I've walked by the Village Green when it's been filled with children, and most of them are just having fun. I mean, I remember that as a kid. And we always have a few bad apples, but I think this community knows who they are. The other thing that I want to discuss a little bit is this has been going on for years. I mean, I remember that first kid who lived on Key Biscayne who started the ghost walker. I mean, the bike ghosts, or he killed the cyclist. It was 5 or 6 years ago. He killed a cyclist. It was on Rickenbacker Causeway, but nevertheless, Are you okay, Michael? I mean, you're the only person I'm seeing. And you look like you're pain. You look like you're
Me, actually. No, go ahead. I don't want you to use up your time talking to me.
So since the first kid killed a cyclist, you know, we've had that child on in the Porsche who also killed a young college girl. I mean, so this has been growing. And I'm not saying that Chief Press is nothing other than a police chief, but I am saying, I mean, first of all, I adore our police force. There's nothing wrong. I see these policemen all the time. But nevertheless, you have to look around and see what's happening in your community. And it really is. I love all the suggestions. I agree with Joe Kellogg that we have to have flexibility. But I think also we have to remember that we are white privilege for the most part. And all of this is white privilege neighborhood stuff. And our police also have to understand that. And that comes from the top. And the top in our police force is 1 chief, 2 deputy policemen, 3 lieutenants, and 5 sergeants, which make...
Frances, I got to ask you to wrap up. You've gone almost to 3.5.
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry.
Wait. No, Michael, I'm not quite finished.
Well, no, you've got, Frances,
Michael,
3.5.
The difference between Pinecrest and Key Biscayne is 6,329 people. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next caller, Mr. Mayor, is Maria Cucolon. Cucolon, if you could unmute yourself, please.
There you go. Ms. Cucolon? Let's go to the next caller and come back to her.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, our next caller is Patricia Agostini. Ms. Agostini, if you could unmute yourself.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you, council members, for volunteering for our wonderful community, and welcome to the new manager. My name is Patricia Agostini. I live in 141 Crandon Boulevard. Some of you already know me. I am a volunteer at KBCS, which is our local public school. And I'm here to show support to our wonderful police department, especially Sergeant Marty and Officer Nieves and Chief Press, and of course, Chief Lang. I can tell you that they have a wonderful program at our school. They work with us, they work with the PTA, they work with the kids. If you don't have kids, you don't see them every morning, but I have the privilege of seeing them every morning, how Officer Nieves greets the students. They know him by name, he knows their name. And I watched the last meeting where one of the council members said how important it was to have a relationship with the police, like when you do like the police the blocks. And that is the type of relationship our officers have with our students at KBCS. So I would like to thank them. Thank you all for your service. And yes, I do think that maybe we can do a little bit better as far as having some extra programming for the teenagers. But I am grateful for our community and for our leaders and for our police officers.
Thank you.
Our next caller, Mr. Mayor, is Heidi Frank. Ms. Frank, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Yes, hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you so much for the police department and the council for serving. I know a lot of you for many, many years. I'm at 485 Woodcrest Road, a resident for 31 years. And I have found the police department to be fantastic over the years. When my family needed them, they were there. I'm a big fan also of the council and of what we have. Welcome to the new manager. We are a special kind of island and the greatest one of them all. I have 3 points. The first one is I really, really like the comments of the public defender. I think we need to make them shared and to be seen by all the parents of Key Biscayne, because me too, when I walk my dog at the Village Green or, on the streets at 10:30 at night, I see 6-7-year-olds running around on a Tuesday night. And that's just, I think, not a good idea, first of all, and bad things can happen from there. So I think that the public defender's comments need to be shared from all the parents. I really enjoy Alan Fines and McCormick's and the other people who have spoken that how can I help? Let me know in sharing and doing my part with other parents in the chats that I'm involved with my children. I have 3 to which I raise here on the Key. And the other point is that in the past, we've had parent seminars at the community center of different kinds, whether it was cyber security and things of that nature. Perhaps this too should be part of that within our community center once it does open up, and or via Zoom as well.
Thank you, Heidi.
Mr. Mayor, our next speaker is a caller with a telephone number ending in 811. Okay. Caller, please dial *6 on your telephone to unmute yourself. Again, caller with the telephone.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have to mute, right? Sorry. Okay. Hi, my name is Carolyn Coslin. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Carolyn Coslin, 255 Sunrise Drive, apartment 301. I'd like to thank the council for their service and for making this evening possible, and to welcome our new manager. I'm calling in tonight to express my support and gratitude for our Key Biscayne Police Department and Chief Press. One thing we might want to consider as budget season approaches is if we actually have enough police officers to provide the service Key Biscayners expect for our now larger population. My family moved to the island in the early 70s, just in time for me to start kindergarten. It was a very different time. We had respect for our elders. It would never have occurred to me to mouth off to an adult ever. Growing up, my friends' parents were Mr. This and Mrs. That, and in most cases, I still call them Mr. and Mrs. even 40 plus years later. I've seen quite a bit of change happen on the island. A stolen bike is nothing new to me. Joyriding in golf carts, also not new. Violence, both verbal and physical, against adults is definitely new. Willful destruction of property, also new. Children who have no accountability on the home front is new. Parents who teach their children that they are above the law is new. It's not our police department's job to parent the children of Key Biscayne. That's the job of the parents. Part of parenting has to include consequences. Blaming the police department for lessons not learned in the home is obscene. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next caller, Mr. Mayor, is telephone number ending in 574. Caller, please dial *6 on your telephone now.
Hi, this is Jan Gillo. I'm at 200 Ocean Lane Drive. I don't want to belabor the point because I know that you guys have been sitting through a lot of this. I just want to say that I'm very supportive of the police and of Chief Press and of prior village councils that created the police department and the current village council that continues to fund it. I think the benefit of having a local police department is immeasurable. It means that we can have two-way communications and that we can have quick turnaround with police response. We as a community cannot beat people over the head in terms of how they're going to raise their kids. We can get the information out that what they need, that it is important and that it is an issue here. But I think one of the things that I would just say is something that Chief Press spoke about in a recent podcast, and that is if we see something, we as a community have to say something to the police. And that is, call them, not write about it in a WhatsApp, but help the police because it is a two-way communication. And I think they can do their job better if we are also vigilant about what's going on and we are talking to them. Thanks very much for your time. That's it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mr. Mayor, is Ms. Jennifer Allegra. Ms. Allegra, if you could please go off mute.
Oh, yes. Good evening. Can you hear me, Peter?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to first thank all the brave men and women on the front lines, for what they're doing and keeping us safe. Their job is really so important. On a national level, the way the police
Ms. Allegra, just your address, please.
Oh, I apologize, Jocelyn. I'm at 1121 Crandon Boulevard, D504. Thank you. On a national level, the way our police have been treated is shameful. I'm really concerned that if this behavior, this anti-police sentiment, this not maintaining law and order continues, that no honest person will ever want to be a police officer anymore. And when I was growing up, that was an honorable job, and I believe that it's still an honorable job. I also believe in law and order. I think everyone in this village does. And I was really happy to hear Ambassador Laredo say, zero tolerance, because knowing that there's laws, and if you break those laws, that's a great deterrent. I also want to touch on two things. Parenting is parenting. That's one issue. That's distinct from enforcing the law. I don't know why the two issues are being conflated, but they really shouldn't. As it relates to our village, I think that we need to keep an open mind, and we may need to consider new leadership. I'm not convinced that our chief of police's heart is in this anymore. He applied to be village manager in 2018. He applied to be, I think it was county commissioner a couple of months ago, and he said he'd be happy to be the village manager. On a personal level, I bought thousands of dollars of misappropriation and embezzlement from my condo association to this leadership, and unfortunately, nothing was done about it. I had to hire a private investigator, and the police department did not return the call of my private investigator. Thumb drives were lost. I didn't get returned phone calls. So from a personal level, and I mean, everyone has a different experience. A couple of weeks ago, I had a great experience with just a regular officer, but I'm not talking about regular officers. I'm talking about leadership. And I think as council, you have a fiduciary duty to consider all options and to think about new leadership. Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Mayor, we still have Maria Cucalon online. Ma'am, if you wish to unmute yourself and speak.
No, I don't think she's there. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
I have no one else signed up to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I wish to speak.
Okay. Hey, Nancy. State your name and address, please.
Nancy Ellisberg, 177 Ocean Lane Drive. And when I'm finished, Don wants to speak. I think that I'm going to, I don't want to repeat everything that everyone has said, although I agree with most of it, not all of it. It's important, based on what's being said and what we need to do, that our police department is not staffed enough to do everything that we expect. People are looking at the total number of police without paying attention to how many police are on each shift. We need to pay for more on our police department. We need to have some social workers, and we need to really go after parents when the police bring the children to them and say that they've done this, to excuse it. We have parents who take responsibility. We have parents who do not take responsibility, and we have to set it up so that as a village, you take responsibility for your children, or we're going to take other action. Thank you. Now it's Don's turn.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Don.
Somebody...
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah, it's very hard to figure this out. I have just two quick things I wanted to observe. The first is on the budget issues. Everybody who is engaged in the budget process in this village needs to look inside themselves and inside the system to try to understand just what's been going on. I had an experience a couple of years ago with respect to the staffing of the schools with the shooters and so forth. And I had a conversation with the chief regarding what they really needed. And I thought we were all in agreement. And the next thing I know, between the manager and some members of the council, they essentially strung on the chief into saying he could do with less people and try to make do with less people on the boat drills or whatever they have going through the canals, etc. And I felt that the chief was put in an impossible situation of pleading for more people, but understanding what his job was to live with what he had, even if he couldn't really live very well. And that was just one example of many that have gone on the last few years of trying to live within the tax base and denying what's really happened when you have a 24-hour village, 24/7 that used to just go to sleep for a couple of months a year. Now, the second one is I really want to make this point to Chief Press. A couple of months ago in one of the shopping malls, I forget the one with anyway, we had an incident where we were parked and a young lady was pulling out of her space and essentially rammed into our car. Now, as it turns out, and she had some help from the sidewalk superintendent who said we were parked at the wrong place and she should call the police and we could go to jail, and on and on and on. And eventually, I think we called, but I'm not sure. One of the women officers showed up and explained to the young lady that no, we were parked at an appropriate space, and since we weren't moving, she was at fault, and we were on the road to having some kind of a citation. And this poor girl, the officer talked with her. This poor girl started to cry. And then your police officer came and explained that she was here on a student visa from Venezuela. And if this citation was issued, her visa was going to be revoked and off she would go back to Venezuela. And you can imagine this kid, who was maybe 19 years old, was in hysterics. We thought we figured this one out, and very quickly said, "Look, go tell her that she's fine. Just come and give us her address, and we'll figure out how to, if we have to have something paid for. But the last thing in the world I want is to send somebody back to Venezuela for a very minor car crash." And I was extremely, extremely pleased by the fact that this officer took it upon herself to suggest that, she didn't suggest what should happen, but she at least wanted to let us know what was going on and let this girl know what was going on. And it was all very, very friendly and peaceable at that time. And I think it was a total credit to this officer for having the sense to let us know what was going on here and what could happen as a result of this less than a fender bender. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'm not. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Maria Cucolon has raised her hand again, wishing to speak.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, members of the council, mayor. My name is Maria Cucolon. I live in 199 Ocean Lane Drive. I would like to bring something. I'll be brief. I know everybody's tired. My daughter, well, I wanted to just first say that most of the speakers have brought the subject of teenagers and juvenile misbehavior. I would like to also talk about the children, unsupervised children. My daughter participates in the local soccer team. And last Saturday, May 15, she was warming up for a game with another team, another Miami team. And there was a boy, an 8-year-old boy playing ball. The coaches told him several times to leave the area, to clear the area for the team. And the kid wouldn't listen. His parents were nowhere to be found. And all this resulted in 2 fractured bones of my daughter. She's 11-year-old. So as much as the juvenile misbehavior, we should also bring about the unsupervision of children in the park. And that's all I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, our next caller is telephone number ending in 110. Caller, please dial *6 to unmute yourself now.
Hello? Hello?
I'm sorry, I was looking for the caller with the telephone number ending in 110.
I think they dropped off. Okay. Who's next?
Our next speaker is...
Are you trying to call? Jennifer, call me right when...
Mr. Stearns? Mr. Gene Stearns?
Gene?
Called me.
Gene, did you want to speak?
Hello? Hello?
Hello. Who's this speak? Okay. I see
Our
one.
next-
Charles Collins has his hand up.
Mr. Collins, if you would unmute yourself, please.
Mute himself.
There he goes. He's Mr. Collins.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right. So I've listened to this tonight, and it sounds so much like my 35-year career in the inner city parks. It seems to be the same problem. And I'd like to hear from Chief and Todd about, they've had a lot of similar.
Mr. Collins, your address.
State your name and address, please.
Charles Collins, 124 Kadima Avenue. So anyway, there's a lot of programs used in the inner city for board teams on the weekend nights to keep them occupied. It's not going to be Disney movies on the lawn because that's not the demographic that's the problem. And I'm sure both Todd and Chief have experience in these, and I'd like to hear from them tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we
Mr.
have any?
Mayor, we have no one else signed up to speak.
What happened to that woman who was chiming in? 096? Did she leave?
Give me 1 second.
It was a different caller. Anyway, okay. Does anybody else, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, or otherwise, Pete, one more time through the directions, just so we get
Yes, sir.
everybody we can, please. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you watching us at home on channel 77 on Comcast, on channel 99 on AT&T, or streaming us via our website, if you wish to speak, please dial 305-365-7569. Then please enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415. For those of you currently in the meeting and you wish to speak, either dial *9 on your telephones or raise your hand within the Zoom app. Mr. Mayor, our next caller is telephone number ending in 812. Caller, please dial *6 now to unmute yourself.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello. Hi, my name is Inbal Horowitz and I live in 1111 Crandon Boulevard. And I wanted to call in and read you a statement that my 14-year-old son wrote, because he had a meeting with the police that was not going as expected. My name is Roy and I'm 14 years old, and I write this statement to describe what happened in the parking garage where I live on June 17, 2020. My father and I went to finish my fitness exercise in the garage because it was raining outside. And there was this is the time that was the order that all of the gym were closed. I play high-level competitive tennis, and these fitness exercises are part of my routine since I was very young. It is very important for me to do my fitness because it's for my goal in life, and I'm very strict about staying consistent with my routine. Due to COVID-19, all gyms were closed, and there was no other place to do my workout. When we arrived to the garage, I saw a woman jogging around the garage and kids riding bicycles at the garage. I was not the only one exercising that day. Usually during days when it's not raining and without COVID, I still see kids playing soccer and people jogging around the garage. Around 10 minutes after I started my workout, I saw Marcelo, is the director of security, passing by next to us and went somewhere. Didn't say anything to us. 10 minutes later, he came back, and the second time he came up to my father and started screaming at him that we cannot do my fitness here, and that we can check the rule book to see that it is not allowed. When my father asked him to show him that there is really a rule like that, he refused to show the rule and told my father to go look for it himself. He was being very loud and aggressive, and he was trying to provoke a fight, and I felt under attack. My father asked Marcelo why he didn't tell others that he didn't see, but he said that he didn't see anyone else. At this point, he started threatening us saying if we don't leave, he will call the police. My father responded that we would leave if Marcelo showed that there is a really rule like that. And Marcelo took out his phone and pretended he just arrived and started to video and recorded me. He said, "Hello, sir. You cannot do this here," even though just seconds before he was yelling at us like crazy. When he did that, I felt like he was planning something weird, considering it pretend he just got there at the time when he started the video, and he kept trying to take the video of me doing my exercise as if I was a criminal. My father asked him to stop the video recording immediately, but he refused, and he was trying to pass my father and take closer video of me. He got very close and did not watch the social distance rule. Even though I was not wearing a mask because I was exercising, I felt he was chasing me, and I started to get worried that he will physically attack me. He was laughing and mocking us and trying to joke my father out just to get closer to me. My father kept telling him to stop recording me, but Marcelo didn't stop.
Ms. Horovitz, you're over 3 minutes. You're at 3:20 right now. So I'm sorry, you've got to cut you off.
Okay. Eventually, he called the police, and when the police came, he told my son to go from the garage. So this is what the police was doing. Instead of protecting my son that was harassed and threatened, he was told by the police to go away from the parking garage and not finish his exercise, because this is very dangerous for Key Biscayne when a 14 years old doing his exercise in the garage. So this is what our police is doing. So thank you. That's what I wanted to tell.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have no one else signed up to speak.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. There's one. Yeah, somebody just joined in at 780. Or did that person just speak?
Caller, if you could please dial *6 to unmute yourself. Caller ending in 780.
Good evening, everyone. This is Toby Rohr, 1047 Mariner Drive. I want to thank the council members for having this meeting, and I want to welcome the new village manager. My comments are subject to a big caveat. I have no children. I have no idea what the pressures are of the parents that the parents have now to educate their children, and I really truly appreciate that this is a totally different universe now from when it was some years ago. Nonetheless, I see a lot happening in the streets that worries me. One of the things is the golf carts full of children running around with no lights on at dusk and overcrowded, and no one there to stop them. I happen to be in a cul-de-sac, and I see them going a mile a minute around the cul-de-sac. It's a miracle that nobody gets hurt. I know that there is a lot of talk about children entitlement. Well, I'm entitled to be able to walk around with my dogs, and I'm entitled to enjoy, like many of us taxpayers, this city or this village at all times. This is not a reflection on the police department. This is not a reflection on Chief Press, who we so admire, at least in our household. We think highly of him and the work that the police department is doing. The parents, as difficult as it may be, they need to be made accountable. Thank you again.
Thank you, Toby. Okay, anybody else? Oh, okay. We've got one more. Apparently, Gene Stearns did want to speak.
Telephone number ending in 396. Please dial *6 now to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Jennifer Pema, 101 Crane Boulevard, 176.
Hey, Jennifer.
I want to thank you guys for doing this. I think it's awesome. I run the basketball program. I think, number one, I admire the police force, the fire department, and our community leaders I think everyone has always done an awesome job trying to have activities for the kids. You know, many different types of activities are available to our children. Unfortunately, COVID has put a kibosh on that. But in general, I think the island is a wonderful place to be, and everyone does a wonderful job. Things that can be done, I love all the ideas. A lot of towns have like a community watch group that, you know, walks the island and will call the police when they see something. I think if there's a certain number citizens could call, not an emergency number, but let them know that they see something happening that would send the police there, I think would be great. I think it would also be very important for parents moving to this island. We have a lot of people who come for a couple of years and leave. Let them know what the expectations are. I don't know if that's when you sign up at the rec center, you have to, you know, sign something saying that any community property, these are the expectations. And I love the ideas of enforcing, having the parents also be responsible for their children's actions. So I just want to say thank you. I think you guys are doing a great job. And that's it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Gene Stearns, I see you there. Mr. Stearns?
I'm trying, Michael.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You can hear me. Well, okay, thank you. I got a couple of thoughts, and I appreciate, I've enjoyed listening to everybody talking.
Just state your name for the record.
Address.
I'm sorry, 250 Cape Florida Drive, Key Biscayne.
Thank you, sir.
I've had the joy of living on Key Biscayne for almost 50 years with my wife and raised my children here, our children here, and they live here as well as our grandchildren. Mr. Manager, welcome to the village of Key Biscayne. It's a challenge I know that you will enjoy, because I think what you're experiencing tonight is how people appreciate in this community what is being done by our village government. Chief Press, Eric Lang, these are folks who just mean so much to this community, what they've done for us. And we go back, of course, to a time before there was incorporation, when our tax rates were almost twice what they are today for municipal services, when we had no police, really no meaningful fire rescue. We didn't have Village Green, we didn't have a community center. And while we had lots to complain about, we had no one to complain to. So tonight is an example of the opportunity to complain about rich people's problems. And if I may, when you have something stolen from me, when a crime has been committed, and that's happened to, I think, all of us at one point. For me, it was when my brand new bicycle was stolen when I was a child, and no one ever cared other than me. When we were first here, when someone, before we incorporated, someone came to our backyard and stole thousands of dollars of beautiful orchids out of our backyard. And we went out and they were all gone, and there was no one to complain to. The most important thing about policing is not that there's not going to be crime, there is going to be crime. The question is what happens when it happens, and how much can you do to deter it? And in this instance, when the police found those kids who did a very bad thing, and they had to deal with the juvenile justice system, they may be back, they may do it again, but as a practical matter, what will be learned is our police system does what it does, it will be more difficult to do it again. And that is really what it's all about. There are bad kids, there are bad adults. When you put bad kids in a crowd, they can be worse. But frankly, when you can put bad adults in a crowd, they can be worse. And so what you have in the circumstance here is we are so fortunate to have what we have and to have the leadership we have in this community. And so God bless them, and I hope we continue to make it better, but recognize that supporting the people that have made it what it is an important element of continuing to get it better. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. And thank you, Chief Press and Chief Lang, for all that you do for this community.
Thank you. Anybody else? Look, this is the point, right? We wanted, I think we can call tonight a success, certainly by the number of people we've had speak. So, yeah. All right.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is discussion, crime, policing, and what can be done, and with the community's input.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Everybody's been talking about a violent incident took place at the Village Green few weeks ago. I'm muted. I'm muted?
No, you're not.
Anyway, a few weeks ago, and all kinds of stories have spread from basically one of the perpetrators had a skateboard, came behind the resident and smacked him in the head, knocked him out. And another thing I heard was the other person would kicked him or hit him when he was on the ground. And then I heard that none of that was true, but rather there was a confrontation between the resident and one of the perpetrators, the kid, and supposedly the resident threatened the kid hit the resident, knocked him out on the ground, but he really came there because his daughter was there. Anyway, there's so many stories and so many things going on. I really think the chief, who is probably the only person who really knows what happened, could tell everybody and set our minds at ease on what actually took place that evening. And if we had 20 more policemen, could it have made any difference? So I'd like to hear from the chief, if you don't mind.
Chief, can you do me a favor? Can you put the headset on?
Sure.
Thanks. That way people can hear you. And you can hear, because there may be other council members who ask.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Oh.
I guess you guys.
We could hear you, but no, I couldn't hear you.
Nobody's ever going to accuse me of being technology brilliant. So, Mayor, council, and to my new boss, Mr. Williamson, welcome. Specifically on that crime, that evening, there had been a previous altercation between these two juveniles who do not live here and a couple of other people. I don't know what the altercation was about because we never really got down to the nitty-gritty of that. However, one of the participants in that altercation happened to be running away from these two juveniles, and the young lady who was with our victim spotted that person and asked her dad to give him a ride on the golf cart. Now, there's three parts of the truth. There's one side, the other side, and then the real truth. According to our victim, who's very believable, as they were driving down the street, rocks were thrown their way by these two youths. And being a father and a very protective father, our victim stopped his golf cart, went over to the youths to confront them on the missiles. We actually call that throwing a missile that they threw at him. And there were some words exchanged. And the subject, the main subject, literally cold-cocked with his fist. There was never a skateboard involved. With his fist. And the impact temporarily knocked out our victim. So you could imagine as he fell to the concrete, he took a second blow because he could not, stop the fall as he was unconscious as he fell. The second subject, being related to the first subject, then I guess felt compelled to add more insult to injury and did reach down and did strike the victim with his fist. And thus the charges were as follows. The first subject, because of the extreme injury to our victim, was charged with a second-degree felony for aggravated battery. The second subject was charged with misdemeanor battery. They were both taken to the Juvenile Assessment Center per protocol, where they were both intaked and then released. The misdemeanor subject was released that evening to his parents. The other violator was released the next day to his parents, the felonious violator. Currently, that prosecution is somewhere in between whether or not they will charge him as an adult or as a juvenile. And as our young man, and very thankful for both the PD's office and the state attorney's office to be here. They have to weigh several options as to whether or not they will charge somebody as an adult. Part of those options are to determine if there is a past history. The subject who was arrested for the aggravated battery does have a past history. And so they are considering charging him as an adult. And they have not made that determination yet. So therefore, the charges are pending. The other subject will remain charged as a juvenile and will be processed as such. Yes.
That's a good question. Go ahead.
No, to the new manager, what I'm not going to read into Councilman London's question, but I have a problem in as people who are elected officials who respond to 100 calls, including misinformation, like you said, rumors. You're sitting there completely uninformed. I was completely uninformed. So I would make it a motion that working with the police chief, you make it a strict protocol that any of this kind of stuff, particularly these kinds of things that get this kind of widespread, we need to know. We are your bosses, and we have to respond to the taxpayers who pays for all your salaries. It is very uncomfortable to be asked by citizens about what is going on when all these chats are going on and misinformation, and we are the last to know. I never got a call from anybody in the administration. And that, to me, that's an important. Chief did tell me, because I asked the chief, and he completely filled me in before, but I want everybody else to know the same thing I knew. And I assume you knew the same thing, right? He talked to you.
I didn't know this, but I guess part of this is if the chief is involved, if the police are involved in an investigation, they can't tell us a lot. You know, there's only so many things, you know, because I had the same situation going on that you did, council member, that people were calling and asking. But the point is, we have to let the police process play out. And what I was responding to was, folks, we are on council, but I wouldn't want the police to be sharing things until they're known facts, because otherwise we may be interfering with an investigation. Now, I may be wrong on that, but that would be my understanding, is that we're the public, right? They're not going to tell us, because who knows, maybe it's my kid. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we have to be very careful in what we're requiring our staff, our administration, to tell us about things that are ongoing investigations. Certainly I'd want to be brought up to speed later. If we request it. I never actually requested on this one, but yeah, Chief, if you wanted to speak to that, that would be legally, that would just be my concern.
I asked him, the chief, and he told me it was no problem.
Well,
let me just before today, not today. The whole reason, Mayor, and I think I was the person who recommended that we have this hearing, is to, it's not to praise anybody, to blame anybody, to go through all the stuff, some of what we've gone tonight, is to accept as adults, responsible elected officials, we have a problem. Let's together find a solution how to make it better. Period.
Okay.
And all my comments for the press, I made that perfectly clear. So all the rest of the stuff is water under the bridge.
Okay.
I think you take it to an extreme. What? I'm sorry, I can't.
We can't hear anything.
Oh, you can't hear him? Because I can hear him on the mic. I can hear him in my headset.
I can hear him. Like, I can't hear somebody talking in.
We've been at this for a year and we still can't get it right. So my point is to put it in perspective. That was the reason I think we did this meeting, and I want to get focused on that. So, and I'm very specific. So specifically, we can't take your argument about legal restraint and everything about investigation, but the general outline of the case, whether it's been hit by a board, whether it's been kicked in the thing, is something that we need to have, and you all need to be proactive, because we don't get paid to do this job, but we do get the calls. And then it stops what I think part of Ed London's question and mine
is we had no answers to anybody. You know, I don't need confidentiality. I don't need the name of the person. I don't need any of that stuff. So my specific administrative policy, because we're here to make policy, is that you would take it upon with the police to develop a protocol that is acceptable to inform your elected officials of the general outline as immediately as possible, so we can stop this chatting world that by the time 2 days go by, I thought 3 people were murdered. And it's nobody's fault. I am not here to do any fault. I'm moving forward. So would that be okay with the rest of you?
Sure.
Again, we can't hear anybody.
They can't
talking.
hear. Nobody can hear.
That last person who spoke, we cannot hear.
You can't hear it all?
No, we can hear everything. We just can't hear the last.
Whatever you just said, Mike, nobody else got.
Well, that's because Pete muted me. He likes to mute me.
Could you?
But no, he was. It wasn't. No, my point was. No, I mean, Councilmember Laredo made the point that we are directing as a council, we can direct staff to create a protocol for an investigation where there are facts they can provide to us, and also tell us what they can't tell us. You know, I mean, I think that's so that we can actually, I get that point. I mean, I want to be careful about the investigation, but to the point that we don't, that they cannot release stuff, we'll be able to say, look, we can't release that at this time. We have a definitive answer for the public going forward. We do have additional speakers signed up, by the way. So I don't want to lose people who have been hanging on till 8:30 at night. You know,
may I point out one thing?
Certainly.
What we did get was the police report when it was issued.
Right.
We read it. I read it. I noted, for example, to the prosecutor's point about criteria for charging directly. One of the points was the kid was 17 years old, I believe. And he's coming out of the, so the point about having a path for rehabilitation plus his record might actually indicate that he's not a candidate, or he is a candidate for the direct referral by their own standards that they spoke to tonight. The police report speaks to that. So there's that. We did get that.
I mean, to Councilmember Laredo's point, does everybody agree? We direct the manager to work with the chief on, and again, this could be communications as well, providing us with the information as
yeah, let's don't make it too complicated.
I'm not trying to make it.
And of course, it's not every case, but this was like you couldn't step out of your house with somebody saying, you know what happened. So I mean, you got to put her in perspective. Use the old common sense,
Michael.
Yes.
and call your elected officials. Generally, we're investigating. Generally, this is what happened. We're not going to give you the name, all of that stuff, but so that we can say exactly that. I did not get the report until about 2 days later. I could be wrong, but I'm talking about immediately, because then things just flew in this community, and we have a community that is very versed, and sometimes they enthusiastically distort the facts, and by the time it gets to the second day, it's a major crisis. So it's a simple, concrete thing to do, and that would help all of us moving forward.
All right.
Right.
Go ahead.
Something really simple. I just think we should leave it up to the chief. When he feels we can disseminate to us, he'll disseminate it. If it's something that can't be disseminated at that time, he won't. It's that simple.
Well, I think
fair enough. So as he's doing an investigation and there's something confidential or something can't be public, he can't disseminate it. But if it is not, then he will, and then we'll know.
That's what Ed, I'm sorry. That's what I said. Yeah.
Fine.
And to be
I'm
proactive,
agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Fine.
Councilmember McCormick?
Ed, the information that you got immediately, that was likely the information I got immediately because I called and asked, it was, I can't tell you too much because this is an ongoing investigation, but the teeny bit that I had, even just so much as to be able to tell the people who called me, the police are absolutely on this. We don't have details because it's an ongoing investigation. Sometimes even just that little bit can make people feel more at ease and be less likely to engage in the rumor mill. And
but we got that.
It should be, and I think though, no, but I mean the immediate, like I called the next day. It sounds like Ed called the next day. If there were a set policy of how we, if it were the manager maybe who calls us because the police are busy with the investigation, you wouldn't miss anyone. Instead of, and it also may be a little bit more efficient for both the police and the manager if it were sort of a streamlined process that they always followed, as opposed to Ed called, I called, and you know, Luis didn't call, but so he didn't get the message. So anyone who called him didn't hear what people who called me heard. It makes sense to me, I guess is all I'm saying.
Allison, the reason I'm glad you brought that up, because as you can, now that you know me a little bit, I'm a fanatic about processes and following the rules. And I am a big believer in not micromanaging. That is not our job. So I did not call the police chief, which at the time was also the manager, because I was not in my operational mode in our village. It is their responsibility to make the judgment. This is important because you have to be dead or sleeping the whole 48 hours to know this is all over the community. And just, it's very simple. Just pick up the phone and say, we're working on it. But, you know, basically what the general say. So I just, sometimes we have these meetings and we have these consensuses and then it gets lost. That's why I'm beginning to drift into making motions so that we have an actual, you know, justifiable. So I would like to move that they develop professionally the protocol to inform, to proactively inform us. So it shouldn't be our burden to call you. You should call us and give us, which, by the way, because we're on the same team, and we can help you squash the rumor mill. And I think that's because I wanted to get to some concrete things tonight. That's something that would be helpful. Hopefully, we never have to have this again. Ever.
Right. Let's get this done, and then I just would like. There's somebody with their hand up, and I feel kind of badly that it's 8:30 at night. So I'll second the motion. Let's. Are we good with the motion? Everybody in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Opposed?
Nobody's opposed.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Pete, can you get this person 303? Give them their
Yes, sir.
opportunity.
Caller with the telephone number ending in 303. Please dial *6 now. Caller, you're live.
Caller, state your name and address, please. Yes.
Vanessa Sanzacedo, 103 East Enid Drive. I just wanted to call in and show my support for, you know, Chief Press and Chief Lang and all of you council members and mayor. I've lived in Key Biscayne and enjoyed, you know, my life here for the past 20 years. My husband and I are raising our kids here, mainly because this is such a wonderful and safe community, thanks to all of you guys and your hard work. And I'm also a realtor on the Key, and I can tell you that 100% the people are moving here because it's such a wonderful and safe community. And so I just wanted to show my gratitude and support.
Thank you very much. Sorry you had to wait so long. Bye.
No worries.
Okay. Pete, is that it? Is that the last one?
Yes, sir. No one else has signed up to speak.
Okay. You know, one thing I wanted to say was there were a number of accusations that have been leveled against the chief in public comments last week. There were a couple tonight, but the vast majority obviously are in support. And then there was an article that made some accusations, and I wanted to give the opportunity to the chief because I think it's important for us to hear the other side. You know, we heard from these people on their side, but I'd like to hear from the chief, and I'd want the council to hear, you know, his side of the story on the items that were brought up.
Thank you once again, Mr. Mayor, Council. So I just wanted to touch on some of the things that were reported in the paper or sent in by an op-ed, things that were not truthful so that we could bring the truth out. We just spoke about this current crime right now. I read where one of the persons sent in a op-ed that said that the hit and run with injuries resulted in nothing, that the police lost evidence, that the police lost video evidence, and there is nothing going on in the case. That hit and run case was an arrest was made after a very extensive investigation. It was originally set for juvenile court. It was pushed to adult felon court, and it was ruled by a judge to return to juvenile court. And so now we are waiting to hear from the court system as to what they're going to do and where that's going to go. There was no lost evidence. All evidence was processed through the state. All evidence was collected. And right now, we're just hoping to get this to trial one way or another, whether it's processed in the adult or the juvenile court. And the charges on that case were hit and run, resulting in serious injury, which is a felony. And they were also evidence tampering. And both of those charges were pressed on the juvenile that we arrested. There was some discussion about 20 to 30-minute response times. And we all need to understand that when you've got 4 or 5 units out on a shift, especially at nighttime, and we have right up until recently, I think just before the manager came, I was the one who actually canceled the curfew order. We've had 2 officers stuck out there on our checkpoint since COVID started. So we're down 2 officers right there. We've got 3 officers left. If officers receive a call for service, a disturbance requires 2 cops. If it's a domestic, requires 2 cops. Loud party, 2 cops. If, there are times when we simply don't have the manpower or we're on another call. And so we, like all police departments do, have to prioritize our response and our calls. So we will let the caller know that we will send an officer as soon as one is available. We can't be more honest than that because we don't know how long it'll take for the other officers to clear. If it's a 911 call, we literally clear all non-emergency activities that we are currently engaged in, and everybody goes on a 911 call. I wanted to make that really clear. I also want to talk about transparency and the fact that there were allegations that I'm not transparent, or even worse, that the police department is not transparent. Every one of our cases, whether or not we publicly talk about it or don't talk about it, every one of our police activities is at the mercy of Chapter 119, which is state statute, which is all about public record. It is all a public record. Now, there are times when, if we're dealing with a victim of a sexual assault or a juvenile, that certain information has to be redacted and it's not allowed to go out to the public. But our statistics, how many traffic citations we write, how many juvenile citations, everything that we do, that we document, is transparent, and it's available to anybody who wishes to call us and ask us about it. The folks who wrote in these certain articles, I've never received a call from them. And I understand what Councilmember Laredo is saying in being proactive in our communication. And one of the things that the manager and I had a very early discussion on is to be more active in how we communicate what we do. Cops generally don't talk about what they do. We just go out and we do it, we document it, and it's there and it's available for anybody who needs. But we are a small community here, and we could definitely do a better job of communicating how we do and what we do. So we are working on a better plan for that, and I think you will see that in the near future. When we talk about the Juvenile Assessment Center, there was another allegation that we don't take our kids to the JAC, that we treat them differently. When I came here in 2004, we were the only police department that did not take their juvenile offenders to the JAC. for whatever reason, the leadership before me had made the decision that our kids should not be subjected to going to the JAC and being mixed in with other juveniles. I got a call the first week I was here from the leader of the JAC at the time, who asked if our police department would work as every other police department in Dade County worked, and send our kids, if necessary, and if they were arrested for criminal behavior, to the JAC. And I agreed, and we've been doing that ever since. You know, I get zero tolerance. I understand strict discipline of the law and enforcing that law. But there are times when the police officers have to have discretion. If we were to write every person that violated a law to the tiniest degree, to the person who almost came to a perfect stop, but they barely kept rolling through it, who barely passed that red light, who did something that could damage them in the future, but it really was borderline just sometimes being stupid, okay, or not thinking. And we all know physiologically, kids don't think like adults. Sometimes adults are distracted and they may make mistakes. So although I direct our officers to be very strict in their enforcement, I also understand that I can't be there on every traffic stop. I've stopped people who were sick and they were racing to get home, and I've actually escorted them home. I've stopped people who have had other emergencies and we've allowed them to go on. I've stopped people who simply made a mistake, and the idea of correcting their behavior was just as good to rip into them a little bit and warn them than it was to actually provide a statistic and a citation. So although I fully agree with tough policing, and I come from my previous history where tough policing was a matter of survival during the crazy days of the Miami crime waves, cocaine and Marielitos, etc. There are times when it's not necessary that everybody has to go. So that's my thoughts on that. We respond as a police department to spikes, to declines. We are a department of 36 sworn people, and crime occurs. My job is to get with my staff, identify that spike in crime, shift our resources, and once we shift our resources, take on that crime until we've dealt with it, and then go back to providing the ancillary services that we do otherwise. Right now, in this uptick in juvenile activity, we have put aside our traffic unit. We've pretty much eliminated anything on the water, with the exceptions of one boat on weekends because of the chaos we deal with over on the sandbar. And we've had all those units shift to nighttime so that we can deal and respond to this problem. Once we feel, and the manager and I have looked at May, the end of May, after Memorial Day weekend, to reassess, reevaluate where we're at. And we were both out on Friday night till midnight and found that things were quite different than they were when we had some of these chaotic events weeks ago, before we started really hardcore enforcing with a ton of cops. He even made the comment, God bless you, that there's cops everywhere. Wherever we went, we drove this entire village. There were cops everywhere, and it's a wonderful thing, but it's not sustainable. So as there are ebbs and flows in our response, so our response is. And we do it immediately, and we do whatever it takes to eliminate that problem, and then we go back to the full service police department that we currently provide. I just wanted to touch base really on some of the arrests, because we talked about arrests tonight. We heard about it from the state, and from the PD. In 2019, we made a total of 39 arrests here in the village of Key Biscayne. Not one of them was a juvenile. In 2020, during COVID, we made 105 arrests, and 31 of those were juveniles. 2020 was when we had our worst spike of car thefts. And why did we have that spike? Because we were locked into details where our cops were not patrolling, period. We were literally locked into details, and we had people run the curfew. And those were some of the events, sir, we talked about where we engaged and they ran, and we caught some, we lost some, but 105 arrests in this village during COVID was as dramatic as could be. This year alone, we've had 20 arrests, and 12 of them have been juveniles. When we talk about golf carts and juvenile civil citations, in 19, we had 34. In 20, we had 56. And already this year, we've written 66 juvenile civil citations. Uniform traffic citations, we wrote 57 in 2019. We started separating adult from juvenile in 2020 on our traffic citations. So we wrote 18 juveniles in 2020 and 21 juveniles so far in 2021. Trespassing are issues we've had at CVS and at our Winn-Dixie and at 7-Eleven. In 2019, we had 7 trespass warrants. In 2020, we had 19 because nobody was allowed out. In 2021, thus far in 5 months, we've written 50 trespass warrants. Curfew violations is something, and I'm not talking about the village curfew or COVID curfews. I'm talking about the use of the Miami-Dade County curfew statute for juveniles. Monday through Thursday, it's 11 p.m. is the curfew. Friday and Saturday, the law says 12 p.m. And then Sunday, again, we're back to 11 p.m. We've already written 27 of those curfew violations. And the reason that we have kind of stayed away from that particular thing is because we have to basically babysit that violator until mom and dad can actually come and pick them up. But something I want y'all to know that we've done differently this year than we've ever done. Every interaction with a juvenile that we have requires a mother and a father to come to the scene and to understand the law breaking and do what they have to do with their juvenile, because we're citing the children and we're taking the golf carts away from them if it's a golf cart. If they're out there violating juvenile curfews, they're violating that. Unfortunately, we've had to take moms and dads out of restaurants, out of entertainment things that they've been doing. And I'll give you a classic example. One child we actually had twice in one night. He was 14. He was stopped for driving a golf cart. Doesn't have a license, obviously, because he can't. Called the parents. Parents came out, took the son, very embarrassed. Sorry, we didn't know our son had the golf cart. 1 o'clock in the morning, that same officer happened to see 2 young people walking down the roadway. He pulled them over. He stopped by them. It was the same 14-year-old with a 12-year-old. And we had to wake up the parents who didn't realize their son was out. This isn't about parents with me tonight. It's about the fact that we are fully engaged with parents now. And there is no, could I send my son down? He's 18. Could I send my daughter? She's 19. And we used to do that. Now it's moms and dads strictly. So we are taking this to a higher level. We are fighting the fight out there and still trying to do the things as best that we can do.
Councilmember McCormick, I know you had your hand up before. Did you want to know? Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember London.
A lot of people think these chats, etc., what a dangerous place this is, all this heavy crime we have. You read all these statistics that you're just talking about. We hear about enforcement and zero tolerance. We're going to do all these things. All these various statistics you just read us, how many of them would be classified in a felony crime, say in 2019, 2020, and up to now? How many of those incidents altogether would be felonies other than misdemeanors?
An extremely small percentage.
Few, 2, 3, 4 a year?
Extremely small.
Almost nothing, correct?
Almost nothing.
So basically, this is one of the safest communities that you're ever going to find. Sure, you have a driving curfew, all these, they add up statistics. But as far as making it dangerous for people to live here, as far as making it, people should be afraid to go out, there's almost nothing that you're reading to us that would indicate that this is not the safest community, that you're not doing a great job. I mean, you and I fight all the time when it comes to the budget. You and I think, everybody knows that since I've been here for the last 8 years, you and I go at it all the time. By the same token, I hate to tell you, you're doing a damn good job. So when you look at the major crimes or even the crimes that can be significant for a 13,000 person community, we have almost nothing. And I hate to give you credit, but you're due credit. I mean, your guys must be doing something right, despite of what I say to you. Okay.
Let's get this on the record, please. Councilmember Laredo.
Don't put that on the record.
All right, Councilmember Moss and then Councilmember Laredo.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chief, for your words. I haven't really said too much tonight, but I'd like to go ahead and put my 2 cents in. You always have my support, and I think I've always told you this. You always have my support for strictly enforcing the law, because I think that's the main function of a police department, is to enforce the law. And I mean that as it's okay to give warnings. Warnings are embarrassing. I've gotten warnings for doing something, making a wrong turn when I wasn't supposed to. It's embarrassing. I don't do it again. I mean, I don't like getting pulled over, and I don't think anybody really likes it. So I think it's effective not to always have to write a ticket, but even to give warnings, I think are effective, and you always have my support for that. I think tonight was very interesting. I thought it was very good. A lot of good feedback from all of the council members, especially our community, that had a lot of great ideas of possible solutions. But something I just wanted to say is that I was talking to a client today, and he's lived in Brickell for 2 years and he's never been to Key Biscayne. He asked me where I lived. I said, Key Biscayne. He says, oh, really? I've never been there. How is it? And the first thing I tell him is wonderful, because it's so safe. That's the first thing I say. It's the first thing that pops in my mind, because Key Biscayne is the safest place to live in. It really is. And a lot of that we have to credit our police department and the leadership here from our chief and our past council members, current council members, our managers. We all work really hard to maintain this as a safest place. So thank you, Chief, for the work you've done. But even being the safest place, I'm a firm believer that there's always room for improvement. And we always have to be looking for improvement to maintain this place as the safest place. And when fires arise, which new issues pop up all the time, we need to put them out quickly. And again, I want to thank our police department for working hard the last couple of weeks, because I think you guys made an adjustment, and I think we all felt it in the community, and it worked. But I also do think that a lot of people have brought this up, that this is a community issue, and it's true. It is a community issue. We, as council members here and as a village of Key Biscayne, we need to do what we can as a government to improve our side. But we need parents also involved. And I'm already talking to my kids about this, and they're young, but we need to teach them at a young age that what the consequences are and how to respect people older than you, and respect the adults and how you treat them. So I think it's really important that we need to all do our best as a village to help each other to get through this and make sure that, that we avoid these type of issues. I think the police being called is a last resort. I mean, once a police are called with an issue, it's already a major problem. I mean, we should not be thinking about that and finding ways, how we deal with it, because it's not a good situation if they are being called. But I think also what's very important is that as a community, if we do see something, we need to say something and not say it in the chats. Call the police. If you see something dangerous happening, kids throwing rocks at cars, call the police. You know, I mean, it's what we need to do. I mean, it does make a difference, and let the police handle it. So I'm really looking forward. We have a new manager with us, and welcome Manager Williamson. I'm really looking forward to working with you and looking at the plan moving forward and how to maintain that we stay the safest place. And I do support Councilmember Laredo's motion. I think communication is very important, and we as a council can help tremendously on putting some of these fires in these ridiculous chats that are out there that spread false rumors constantly. So I think that we can really help put those out. So I thought that was a great idea. So again, thank you all, and thank you to the speakers who came and spoke at the beginning, and from the state and from the public defender, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lurie, do you want to say something? I had
Yes.
an idea, but go ahead.
No, I want to finally get around to specifics because it's been good. But let me put it back in perspective because we keep, nobody's arguing that this is a very good and safe place to be. And my initiative in this meeting and moving forward is we want to keep it the safest. We want to keep it that way. And so there is no shame. There is no demeanor. What is it? A wise man once said that ignorance is hitting a wall several times, and stupidity is hitting the wall 20 times and not figuring out what around it. I think it was Albert Einstein. We got a problem. We also understand that sometimes, and in public life, I can tell you this category, perception is a lot more important than the facts. So the numbers of arrests are wonderful and good evidence, but if the perception of people is that we're unsafe, that we don't feel, then we need together to address it. That's what we've been going through in the last few weeks. One of the people that, because the way they are, because we have a lot of activists, I think I speak for what I would call the silent majority. And the silent majority, are law-abiding citizens. And they feel harassed. They feel, as a couple of the ladies call, they feel bad about walking my dog. So, or I feel unsafe. Not that you're unsafe, but you feel unsafe. And that's where our responsibility kicks in to do better, to communicate better, and to enforce better. The issue of strict enforcement or zero tolerance does not preclude, and Mr. Manager, it does not preclude the judgment that you as human beings, professionals, make on the spot. Because we don't want you to aggravate a situation that could be handled easily. But we have to start sending the message out that we will not, at least as one councilman, I think this slippery, I lived through this, Chief, as well. I was with the city of Miami during the 70s and early, when there was a lot of very difficult police problems. That's when I addressed Fernando Rondel's representative, I know how difficult their portfolio is. But, I'm elected to protect Key Biscayne, not to save the world. And so I want to keep it that way. And I think together, without getting into egos, without getting into blaming anybody, just move forward. In today's meeting, we spent a lot of time for people, but really at the end, the lady who spoke at the end gave two incredible, when we talked about starting this, we're looking for specific suggestions that I've learned in business that people in organizations, the public in this case, would tables advice. She recommended two things that I'm going to get back to that were very specific. She didn't go into any kind of stuff. So I want to set up, Mr. Manager, I don't know what the follow-up is, but I'm surprised you haven't brought this up because you and I have been talking about this for a while. And we did some progress. I believe, and it's a fact in police literature, whatever city you're in, that police visibility, so-called community involvement, works. It's not my opinion. And we have the perception of not enough visibility. We talked about, we're not maybe not walk the beat like they did in New York and Chicago to stop, but we did purchase bicycles. And I know that we had a transitional period. I haven't seen the motorcycles that we purchased. And so we need to display more physical visibility other than vehicles. And I know it's a challenge and it's easier said than done, but a lot of people say, they're there, but they can't even hear. They're on the computer and they're filing report. So what I suggest we do is either have on an agenda, you are only 1 week in, and give us, I have the whole list of things that I would like to get your input, because I don't, I may be wrong on this. I may be wrong on, people call me and say, well, why, we have the wonderful school patrols. People ask me, who pays for them? Why don't the school pays for them? Private schools. I don't know the answer. I mean, I have a whole list. I don't want to take up your time, but the pivotal moment comes from the ball pivot. Speaking of basketball, we are at a pivot point in this community, and it doesn't, you move this way and somebody's going to block your shot. You pivot around it. So we are at a moment where we done great up to now, and we need to kind of together pivot to a new mode. This is not the Key Biscayne that moved in 1980, nor is it the Key Biscayne that you came in 2004, I believe. And the population has changed. There's a cultural infusion that not necessarily is consistent with what I'm saying, but the only way to teach you, you've heard me this from the day I was sworn in, is I used to quote, hit them with a 2x4, but there are more sophisticated words, zero, and if we don't move in that direction, Chief, we're gonna lose it. Policing is supposed to be about prevention, and policing not all the time should be. I don't believe the officers have to carry a social agency responsibility. There are a lot of other agencies, and I know that the truth is in between, and you struggle to keep that balance. I know what you're doing, and it's easy to talk, but I know it's about. But we sometimes, unconsciously, went too far into the nice thing. It isn't working as well as you want it to work because some of the population has changed. And by the way, so to be concrete, before I finish. The lady who called, who said that she said something about new residents and briefing. This is an incredible paper. I am very disappointed, and I've told him, Mr. Mayor, because you know me, I'm very direct, at the chamber that we fund, the Key Biscayne Chamber. I'm very disappointed at the realtors because they are people who directly benefit from the security that we provide them, and they need to get involved. Realtors need to get involved when people are moving in, brief them on this kind of stuff, because we cannot continue to put social responsibilities on the police department. Their biggest responsibility is law enforcement. I'm being oversimplistic, Chief. I know that the balance you gave in our community, but the balance is a little bit out. And it's not your fault, and it's not the officer's fault. It's our fault, and it's our fault of some of the people who do not get engaged. Chamber of Commerce, the realtors, get in with the program. Get in with the program because we are going to lose. We are losing people, and the word is people are getting more frustrated. Do we know it's not true? Yes, it's not true, but the perception is that we're moving in the right direction. So we're at the right moment to pivot constructively. It's not about individuals. It's not about blaming. It's not about the past. It's about the future. And I suggest, unless you have time tonight, that we go through a specific number of suggestions or items and you analyze them for a month or a month and a half while you're doing the adjustment he's doing and tell us how to do it better. We certainly have given you the resources, I think, in terms of budget. Is that correct? I mean, you asked, at least I've ordered, you asked for, we settled the contracts, we've given you, so it's not a matter of resources, it's a matter of adjusting your organizational structure to a new reality, unfortunately. But time is of the essence. I mean, you're doing well, but I don't know, within a 30-day span, we need to sort of, because our only job, Mayor, is to set the policy. And there are some policies that can be told so they can follow. So that may require another meeting or another.
Well, okay, so this is what I was going to propose. I think there were some, I agree with you. I think there were a lot of good suggestions that have come out, I don't think they're all on the police. Frankly, I think some of the things you're right.
Yeah, the lady also mentioned about the community watch. That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, that was the Jen, I think.
Yeah.
But other things, you talk about the seminars for new residents. I think we have laws that used to happen. We used to have engagement, trying to engage people. I think that's something that can happen. But what's that? Yeah, like a welcome wagon. Exactly.
Yeah, but get the realtors involved.
Okay. Respectfully, you had your shot. Let me take a couple of minutes. We've got people who are talking about doing things. Ladi Abada had talking about therapists and trying. We need to think about outside the box, because you're right. It's not just the police, right? It's not just having the police out there doing their job. It's our community educating people and getting things out there. People talked about the community center. I think one of the things that I proposed at the last meeting is having a teen advocacy board to kind of figure out, what do teens really want to do? Because you and I, we're a little bit past our teen years, so we're not hip. You're probably still hanging out with teenagers, but that's a different story. But we need to get their input to figure out what's going to work. But I think there are a lot. I think you're right. What I would propose is that we all submit our ideas, what we heard tonight. Because again, we're not to use another analogy, but we're like a bunch of blind people around an elephant. We all caught something different from what we heard tonight, and I think it's a good thing. I think Carlos Martinez and Mr. Bass and Mr. Dunn did a great job of sort of imparting some information, but we can take that further. I would like to see us doing more as a community to educate our people, because I think that's the most important thing. You're right. I am for zero tolerance, but giving the police the right to exercise judgment. We want to enforce the laws that they are, but we can't be absolute, because there are always going to be situations that call for judgment. And that's why we want to hire the best police officers we can. That's why we want the best people on the job, so they can exercise that judgment and they can make a decision for us, or make a decision in the moment. Again, I'm just going through some of the, Michelle Estevez brought up the idea of, but getting things done for teens. We don't have, you're right. It's not going to be movies on the green, but maybe it's going to be, I don't even want to guess what it could be, but we need to do more. Somebody brought up social workers. And I've always thought that that's sort of an interesting thing, because we do, in a lot of instances, require our police officers to act in a role that isn't really their role as social workers. Now, I know there's a difficulty in that, because you're sometimes putting somebody in a different situation, but I'd like us to consider those options and see if there are things that we can do as a community to be ahead of the curve on this stuff. It's not just about being a safe community, but being a community that's looking out for all of our residents, those who are at risk, as well as those who want to be safe and want to walk the streets at night. So I would, I'd proffer this to you, that why don't we all give our ideas to the manager and kind of have him come back to us with ideas of how do we put this, what sort of actions can we do to make things happen for this village? That's what I would, other than us sitting here and talking about each item tonight, that's what I would recommend. Mr. Vice Mayor?
I have two proposals. One, at least I find out that Luis now might support me in beat policing. That is, and basically, I understand a policeman in a car is not the same as a policeman walking the beat. And obviously, we're not going to walk a beat. And we have bicycles, but probably not going to ride the bicycles most of the time. So therefore, you can roll the window down on the car, which basically gets visibility. The other thing, of course, is we can get golf carts instead of cars for some of the policemen who would be on the beat. Because we don't, as I've told you before, we need 3 different divisions, 3 different beats for the village of Key Biscayne. And again, what would this do? You would know the teenagers. You would know the families. You would know the dogs. You would know the cars. You would know what's happening, hopefully before it happened, when it was not going to be something good that might be happening. So again, as a broken record, Chief and I go through this, 8 years now, I guess, Chief, or so, maybe 10 years it's going on, the same damn thing, but I keep preaching, and as long as I'm up here, I'm not going to stop. I still believe the visibility would be tremendous. Everybody would see a policeman every hour or twice an hour everywhere on Key Biscayne. And I talked about then having the sergeant, you have the 3 people doing the beats. You have the sergeant going up and down Crandon, doing commercial, etc., and he can fill in and help if he's needed on one of the other beats. That's number one. Number two, and this was brought up by Will Earl, and it's something I should have thought of myself, but I remember, and he brought it up about Ocean Reef. And Ocean Reef, years ago, I had my kids there, and they have golf carts, and you can rent golf carts, but kids can't rent golf carts. They don't have a license. So they have a licensing scheme at Ocean Reef for golf carts. And if you're 14 years old and you can pass the driving test and written test, ask some questions, they give you a license and you can run a cart. Now, we say all these violations with kids riding golf carts. They don't have licenses or they're not old enough, et cetera, et cetera. If we made golf carts a real privilege, of something that these kids, if they abided by the laws, if they abided by driving properly, if they had the right number of kids in the golf cart, they could drive golf carts on Key Biscayne. But if they didn't, they would be fined, their parents would be fined, and they wouldn't be able to ride a golf cart. And when we had that, it would be a great way of educating the kids on what we received tonight. This is what happens when you do bad things. This is what happens, these are misdemeanors, these are felonies. This is going to ruin your record, your career, your military, whatever else you might want to do if you violate these things. And before you get your golf cart license, you're going to have to read everything else, and you're going to have to take a test. And you're going to have to know all these things and say, there's no defense because you didn't know. You didn't know the rules. You didn't know anything. And if not, we're going to take that away from you. And a 14-year-old to have the ability to drive a golf cart and feel good about himself and get around is great. It's wonderful. And he'll abide by the rules because he doesn't want to lose it. It's the same way you don't go through red lights because you might get your license revoked. You might be in a hurry, but you better stop. Number one, even though those cars come there because it's against the law, and you better follow the law because you'll be in trouble. And this is what I would like to see us work on, to have 14-year-olds, to have a licensing, to have an education, and be able to have really a treat, an ability to say, hey, this is something you're going to get if you do these things, and if you understand these things. And this is the education you have to have in order to do it and take the test, and you're going to have to do this. And you know what? You can make them come back every year when they're 15 and when they're 16 to do the same thing. Anyway, just a suggestion, something to think about, but that certainly would take care, I think, of a lot of kids on this key. And I think it would really be terrific. And of course, the beat policing, which I'm probably just talking to for the sake of hearing myself talk, I still think it would be a great idea. Thank you.
No, I don't think it's Mr. Manager. You've been patiently sitting there listening to us.
You're still here after a week. It's amazing.
I took the over.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, you're still muted. It may be on
Mike, I'd love a turn. I don't think you've seen me.
Sorry, I haven't seen you. I haven't seen you, but let the manager go, and then I'll get back to you. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, Madam. I'm sorry, Mrs. McCormick.
Yeah. No. It's fine. It's fine. I was nodding.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Okay,
very good. Yes, I'm still here, Councilman London, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. First, I want to thank the residents for their input tonight. I think it was a great opportunity for them to come together. Obviously, this is a very important topic to them, and I think it's really important for them to be involved in this really important conversation that we're facing across the key. I'm going to tell you, and I want to tell everyone that I'm very committed, and we are very committed, because I've talked a lot with Chief Press about this, to ensure that we find a way that all of our residents live in a safe and secure community. I've heard tonight, and I agree with you, we will come up with a plan to communicate with council. It should be push, not pull. It's our responsibility to inform you, and we'll come up with a plan on how to do that. Equally important is sharing whatever information we can with the community when we find it, to keep them informed. As some have mentioned, perception is sometimes as important as reality, and we'll take that in consideration. You haven't gotten there yet, but I know you're about to go there. We will begin to work a plan. I think I heard a number of things that we need to look at: policing, programming, education, communication, and then also promoting our community. I think those are the 5 pillars. There might be a couple more. We would love to have your input from council. We'll also take input from the community, and let me and the chief sit down and talk, and we can give you an idea of when we can come back with that plan. I think he mentioned earlier that he and I are going to review on the 1st of June how this surge worked and what were the lessons we learned. Let's use that information and put together a plan on where we want to go in the future.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilmember McCormick?
I don't have much to add. I think everyone's kind of covered just about everything. I was going to say, although the manager is already ahead of me, I think it's absolutely the right move for us to take so many of the wonderful ideas that we got tonight from our residents and to think about them and see how we can implement them. And I imagine this is going to be many, many, many meetings worth of discussions, and something that hopefully will keep our attention and evolve over really a long time as new needs arise. I think we've known for a long time this is a segment of our population that needs our attention. And I'm very, very happy with the response that the police have given recently to address these immediate issues. Obviously, we need to come up with long-term plans that are sustainable. I feel for everyone who shared that they have some feeling of not feeling safe or a perception of not feeling safe. I will say that I'm really happy that our survey doesn't seem to indicate that it's as widespread a problem as it may seem anecdotally, but frankly, in my opinion, one person not feeling comfortable going to CVS is one person too many, or walking their dog. And I imagine that every officer on our force would agree. They work too hard to get the statistics that they do to have our residents feel unsafe in those situations. So clearly needs to be addressed. But thankfully, as the survey indicated, I don't know that it's as widespread a problem as it may feel when we talk to people, but we need to address these things. I think this meeting was an amazing display of what our community can do and what makes our community great. The engagement from so many people to come on a Monday night and either in person, or I was really surprised how many people came in person. I thought that was wonderful. And with so many really great suggestions and a lot for our staff to take in and to try to figure out how to implement. So another example of really why I think we all choose to live here. Two other things that I wanted to comment on. One was a few people mentioned when you see something, say something. I don't think anyone did give the police non-emergency number, 305-365-5555. It's easy to remember. I call it a lot whenever I see underage drivers in the golf cart. I call, and the police take action. So I think it's important for people to know that number. And the other, I wanted to commend both Chief Press and the manager for the idea of including more statistics in a regular police report to council and having that availability for residents. I think Chief Press started to do that when he was the interim manager. I found it useful. I also think that the way that our community is and always looking for information, it will help to be more proactive on that front. In the absence of information, people tend to make up their own facts. I also think having it at the ready will be helpful because we know we have some people who love to make public records requests, and of course that is their right. But when budget season comes, we may need to talk about how to address some of the weight of those requests. So it would be nice to have it at the ready where people could find it on their own. Those are all of my comments from the night. It was a great meeting, and I want to thank everybody.
Okay. Councilmember Moss and then Councilmember Kaplan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a motion on the table, but I mean, maybe we should make a motion to have our manager come back with, work with our chief and come back with recommendations. I think he's heard.
I think he needs to hear from us. We need to send, my understanding was.
I think we can send him some of our ideas. I don't know if we need to go through a laundry list.
I second your motion. Let's make it specific. You have a meeting in June 1st. Why don't we have a meeting with the manager, to evaluate the interim? When would you be comfortable? We give you some feedback. When would you be comfortable, both of you, to come back Middle of June or?
I won't be here.
We could give a report. You think we could give a report at that point?
If that, yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, but.
No, I think what it will be, it'll be an outline of what we believe is the plan ahead.
Sure.
Right. It won't have all the detail because we want to make sure that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that
If
you all
that's a
provide-
motion, I second your motion.
Okay, second.
Right.
For the June 15th meeting.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Councilmember Kaplan?
A very creditable evening. The fertility of the ideas that came from so many people tonight was very welcome. An anecdote that occurred to me about perception, I think, to share. It seemed to me, and I had the same thought that Allison expressed about the survey results. It strikes me, and it has stricken me, that there's situational fear because there's certain instances of provocation that actually affect people in a very direct way. And it's understandable to be fearful in those situations. My sense is that there's more annoyance, in fact, than fear, because there is just too much oppressive, inconsiderate bad behavior. And that is very frustrating when people encounter that at the shopping centers and in the public realm. It seemed very good to me tonight that there was such broad recognition, as I see it, that people recognize what's going on at least as much a sociological problem as a criminal problem. I think that's true. In fact, I think one of the takeaways from tonight for me, and this has occurred to me for many months since this conversation first ensued, and in fact, since we started to become aware of the problems at Mast Academy involving our kids, as Alan Fine spoke to tonight, that not all of what's going on are crimes at all. They're just discourteous, bullying, loudish behavior. And dealing with that is not necessarily, this is not a lax policing problem. This is, where does bad behavior emanate from? To not consider that lessons learned at home that are exported into the community generally is not germane to this is just to be delusional. So I don't think that somebody spoke tonight about conflating parenting and policing. I don't think that happened at all during this discussion, and I don't know quite what to say about that remark. I think conflating the problem that we're experiencing in the community with both criminal behavior in some instances, but also with simply kids being kids, but in a more egregious way than we're used to, that is a conflation that is warranted. And I think that came out loud and clear tonight. And I was pleased about that. And I was also pleased that there seemed to be broad recognition that heavy policing doesn't mean to jettisoning professional discretion, and that strict enforcement doesn't mean throwing the book in a unilateral kind of robotic way at every single infraction, so as to make the point among peers that, to make examples of kids. Right. There are interventions that we've discussed tonight that some of the members of the community have actually experienced and spoke to that seem to be effective in cutting off this bad behavior. Last point, I think for now, there is a problem, though, that some of us confronted, not on the dais, but anecdotally, where there's an oppressive moment and somebody gets upset about it. It can be something like road rage to go and confront the kid who creates the provocation. And that's a bad idea. That doesn't go in a good direction. And I think it's probably worth mentioning to people, don't get yourself involved in a confrontation with a kid. It's not a good thing to do. So what do? I mean, you got to be patient and wise and maybe suck it up and walk away. Call the police if it comes to that. But don't take matters into your own hand and don't be a vigilante. I hope that's good advice. It occurred to me during the conversation tonight. Lastly, and then I think I would just want to thank everybody who participated. I expect that we will have a budgetary discussion because I think one of the things that came up tonight involving staffing and resources touches on things that are maybe within traditional policing, but not within our budget. There were a number of ideas discussed in this last half an hour that came up either from the podium or on the dais or Chief Press's suggestions about what's possible. They're going to, I think, be baked into a budget workshop discussion predictably. So we'll see how that goes. So thank you, everybody. And we'll be back here tomorrow night.
Thank you all. What do you mean? How can we get it?
Well, we're going to try to get the clip of
right, that'll all go out. They're going to put it on the website.
And this is also, you can put out the sheet.
At least an attachment. You know, that's information. I mean, I think it's a link to the.
Yeah, we don't need to wait. I don't want to wait until June. This stuff is very compelling.
We've already directed them. We've directed them to get this out. Absolutely.
And Mr. Manager, why don't you talk to the wonderful people at the Chamber of Commerce?
Okay.
That was something I did want to add to. Chamber of Commerce does do a welcome bag. I had talked with them about trying to put together something that was sort of, and now we have this wonderful communications person, maybe she could help with it, about doing like a welcome to our community. This is what we're all about, kind of rules of the road, if you will. But they do have, when real estate agents rent or sell a property, they have like a welcome bag that has coupons and different things from different local establishments. And it's a great mechanism for us to try to use another avenue to communicate these ideas. But I do think we're going to need some perhaps staff help putting together exactly what the material would be.
How to get them engaged. Okay. Well, thank you all very much. We are adjourned until tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Thank you.